During my investigation into the Ghosts of Carmel Maine, I got to meet quite a few different people. And one of those people is Kyler Roach. Kyler Roach is somebody who advocates for Kent, who defends him, and felt that, in his words, I made the documentary that I should not have made. I wanted to sit down with somebody that had the perspective of the opposition, somebody on the other end of the fence who has spent a lot more time with Kent than I have, and give them a stage to basically speak their piece. I wanted that perspective to be able to be included in my research. I had originally wanted to do something like this in the documentary itself. However, I feel that cutting up this conversation wouldn't do it justice. It's important to hear this perspective uncut. So, here is my interview with an advocate for Kent Burris, Kyler Roach. So you just said this is our first time meeting face to face. Now I reached out. Well, actually, the way that you and I got in contact, and I'm recording right now, by the way, just so you know, we're recording, we're going, but back to the whole thing. I had put out back in 2019. I had put a post on the Ghost of Carmel Maine Facebook page, asking anybody who had been out to Kent's house if they would talk with me and stuff. And you were the only person to reach out to me. You were the only person to reach out to me. I wanted to know, I guess, kind of what to expect. What's Kent like? What was it like? How did you feel at the house? Those kinds of questions, And then I reached out to you a few times here and there throughout the past 5 years. And I guess really we differ in our opinions for last I knew. That I did this documentary and you feel like it's a documentary that I shouldn't have done. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. I want to get your perspective. I want to get the perspective of somebody who's on that side. So, and I don't have anything prepared. We're just having a discussion. I'm not here to interrogate or anything. I just want to talk. So, what is it that, I guess, tell me who you are and what you do and just kind of go from there.
Well, I've been hunting, investigating, whatever you want to call it, since I was about 14.
And how old are you now?
I'm 32.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a weird journey. I started haunting conversations for nobody but myself. Basically, as a means to storage dump on a place where, I don't know, people can tell me what they think of this, that, and the other thing that I find paranormally haunted.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been all right. I mean, I've made $10 off of it. I've got a podcast on it. It's just been a thing that I've been doing over the years. Most people get kind of irritated with me because I don't post as much as I probably could or should, but finding legit hauntings where you're not sitting there talking to yourself for 12 hours, especially in England, is hard.
Yeah.
But Kent's place is a really funny story. I actually found him it was around Halloween, 7 years ago, I think now. And I saw him on the news, and I was like, okay, Carmel, Maine. Where the hell is that? So I Googled it, and I was like, oh, it's only about 45 minutes away. I was like, it's not bad. So I was like, all right, well, this guy's a real deal. Let's go check him out. And, at first I didn't want to just go to someone's house and be like, hey, get out so I can investigate.
Mm-hmm.
I've been through it enough times where I was like, I need to see if this guy's crazy, legit, or doesn't know, So I didn't want to waste my time. So I texted him and I was like, hey, I saw your news thing. You said your house is open to the paranormal, paranormal investigators. I'm a paranormal investigator. I want to come in. He's like, all right, well, I do want to have like a little sit down, let you know the history and all that first. I'm like, that's fine with me. I was actually hoping to do that first because security, I guess. And so I went to his place. He pulled me into the garage, and we were sitting in the first floor, not the second, but the first floor. And I guess his family was in the house, and respect for privacy, I get it. And not to mention, he doesn't like his family being around it, which I completely understand. And he went through the history of what he knows, and we actually got interrupted. I looked at him and I was like, "What was that?" And he goes, "Oh, it's probably just spirits." And I was like, "Okay, normal person would have been like, oh my God, that was a spirit. That was a spirit. Like it's nothing." He goes, "You live around it enough. It was a spirit." I was like,
Right.
"Oh." He goes, "Well, you guys came up all this way. Do you want to go upstairs?" And I was like, "Yeah," because I'm a big history guy. So to be able to be around a house that's that old, be around artifacts that were that old, it was like a dream come true. I love history. I don't know anything about Carmel, Maine. We went upstairs and he had the trunk full of artifacts. He had the rocking chair, a few bikes, and some stuff that he had obtained when he got the house. And he pulls out the EMF and a spirit box, which is funny because those are my go-to. And the EMF started going off, and he was just kind of like, whatever, it's just another day. He pulls out the spirit box, turns that on, and we've been standing for a while, so I was like, "Do you mind if I sit in the rocking chair?" He goes, "Not up to me." I'm like, "Well, who else is it up to?" He goes, "It's Edmund's chair. You gotta ask him." I was like, "Okay." So I sat in the chair, and I'm like, "Edmund, is it okay that I'm sitting in your chair?" And this SB7 immediately goes, "No, get up." And I'm like, "Well, that was rude." So I got up, and I'm like, "I'm not in your chair anymore." He goes, "Good." I'm like, "Okay." And then I thought about it for a moment. I'm like, that is the most clearest responses I've ever gotten. Okay, so this guy's legit. This haunting seems intelligent. All right. Let's see what happens. So I left there and I remained in contact with Kent. And of course, every question I asked was always answered with, "Did you watch the video?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't watch your damn video." So I started going through the videos, and lo and behold, most of my questions were answered if I just watched the videos. And the history was great. The one thing that I do have to say is that kind of annoyed me while watching the videos is he was asking questions, he was getting responses, he was finding some things out, but a lot of it was, okay, well, if A connects to B, but there's this gray area right here, and he had to fill in the blank a little bit. And I was like, okay, I see what you're doing there, And just going through it, like at one point I was like, you know what? I've had it. I want to see some concrete stuff. I don't even know this Edmund Lamb guy is real. If he was ever alive.
Right.
So I was like, you know what? It's Carmel, Maine. It's small town. They've got like what, 2 main cemeteries. Right. I was like, you're telling me Edmund Lamb is a real person. Show me his grave. He goes, cool, get in the car. And we drove up to whatever the cemetery is called. And he brings me right up to the Lambs, and I'm like, whoa, like there's Edmund, Hattie. And he goes, yeah, Naomi's right over there, by the way. I was like, oh, snap. Okay. So it all connected, and I was like, okay. And I think that was right around Thanksgiving of that year. It might have been a little bit earlier. but he got real busy with family and stuff. You know, you can't really do much when you got family around, especially if they're not into the paranormal like you are. So I didn't want to bombard him, but he started texting me. He's like, something's going on in my basement. And I was like, okay, well, what do you got going on with your basement? And he goes, I don't know. Something's dark and I don't like it. I don't go in the basement. I'm like, okay, well, do you want some backup? And he goes, yeah, I'd love some backup. I'm like, I'm on my way. So we went out there, and that's when we filmed whatever the episode was called on his channel. And just being in the Lamb House and seeing it on your screen is like two different things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been all over. I mean, I'm even wearing my haunted museum with Zach Douchebaggins, his museum. So, you know, I as soon as I walked in, it had to have been like, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes. We're walking through the house, and somewhere in the house, I hear, "Hey," and I'm like, "What's up, bud?" And Ken looks at me and goes, "What?" I'm like, "You said hi. We've already, done the hey, how are you? How are you? I'm good. You?" I'm like, "What's up? You're trying to get my attention?" He goes, "I didn't say anything." And I brought my ex-wife with me, and I was like, "Are you trying to get my attention?" She goes, "No." I'm like, "Did you hear that?" She's like, "No." And Ken turns around and goes, "What are they saying hi to you?" And I'm like, "Someone's saying hi to me. Unless I'm losing my mind, which I don't think I am."
Yeah.
But that whole situation was wild.
Yeah.
It
is. I experienced the same thing. I experienced the same thing. I heard in the basement, I heard some voices. Luke and I both did, and that's where it's like, I do think there are things going on there. I tried to make that clear in the documentary that I feel like things are going on there.
You made it very clear.
Yeah. And I guess to me, like what bothers me is the fact that if you've got this stuff going on here, and then I feel that there are things that are meant to mislead you. I feel like there are videos that he has staged. I feel like this is something that is very real, and to me, it's like, well, if you have all this real stuff going on, why are you doing this? Why are you faking these things? And I guess I don't. Let me ask you, what was it about the whole thing? Because I know that you didn't sit and watch all 4 episodes, of what I did, right? You haven't watched all 4 episodes. Have you watched any of it? I mean, I know I sent you the thing with the last part of the 4th episode, but have you watched anything?
I watched 1 and 2, and then the first 45 minutes, I think it was, of 4, and the ending to it.
Okay.
That ending, phenomenal. Phenomenal. Right. I loved the ending.
Right on. Thank you.
Just like going in any like haunting, and it annoys anybody I've ever worked with. I am the first person to go, bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, I've got this, and it's terrifying, and it knocks stuff over, and I'm seeing things in mirrors, and I'm just like, are you though?
Mm-hmm.
It's not the wind. Sure.
Right.
You didn't have a cloth hanging over a window and it just got a little bit of a draft, and then you thought it was a ghost or something. Because I see it all the time, and I'm like, dude, stop.
Yeah. And a lot of it is people that they don't know. They don't know, or they are trying to mislead you. It's really, it's you don't always run into that, because what's happened, I think, is a lot of times people they can't explain it themselves, so then they start thinking like, well, maybe this is something like paranormal, right? And so then they get a hold of a guy like you or Kent or whoever, to come and take a look. But a lot of times, by the time that they've gotten to that point, they're already convinced that there's a ghost in the house. You know what I mean? Or some sort of spirit, whether it be a ghost or a demon or whatever. I've found that that's a thing where by the time that they're reaching out to an investigator, they've kind of already made up their mind. Now, it's not always the case, but it seems that way anyway. I guess give me your opinions. Give me your opinions on what I did.
Are we talking about the video?
Yeah.
So what you originally prefaced was, I'm making a documentary. It's going to be about the Lamb House and the hauntings. And I was like, cool. That's freaking awesome. I've investigated there. I know Ken, great guy, great place, really good activity. And I was like, dude, that's so cool. So I want to see it. It's almost like waiting on one of Ken's videos, like one of the really ones where you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen next?
Right.
And then I watched the first one and I was like, this is about Lamb House or is this about Kent? And then I think it was the ending of the first one. I was like, okay. And then I watched the second one and it kind of turned more into all about Kent. And I was like, well, and don't get me wrong, I love Kent. Don't really care for a documentary on Kent. Like, I know the guy. If I really wanted to know that much about him, I'd just talk to him. So it started with that, and I was watching it, and you went through. It was the first one was the shadow thing in the window that goes right down into under his bed. You did the side by side comparisons, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, he has a few good points. However, his reenactment is too slow. Now, if you had made it to the point where it was equal, I'm talking equal speed, the thing shoots under the bed, you can not see any wires or anything like that, I would have been like, you know what? It could be fake. But I'm watching it, I'm like, it's too slow. And I've seen paranormal stuff, and one thing that drives me nuts, and every paranormal person will tell you this, you always see stuff out of the corner of your eye. And it drives everybody nuts because as soon as you're watching it, but it's happening over here, so you go like this to try and capture it. And by the time you go like this, it's already gone. Great, I just lost a great shot. So my biggest issue with it was fake. It was too slow. I was like, okay, I see where he's going with it. I see how he did it. I see how someone could see it the way he does, but it's still too slow. Anything paranormal doesn't really move slowly like that unless it really, really wants you to see it. In that case, it's going to be in your face for whatever reason. Normally, on average, that's what I run into. So I was watching that and I was like, okay, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. A for effort though. I was this close. Only thing was the slowness of it.
Yeah.
Then there was the thing on the bed that was like I've heard so many theories about it, and I'm always a skeptic when it comes to paranormal pictures or videos because you're the viewer. You're not there. Right. You sit there and say, well, this is an open window. Okay, point out the window. Show me that it's open. Yeah. Show me where the wind is actually blowing any other time. And you can't because you're just the viewer.
Right.
It comes down to, okay, well, I can't verify it this way and I can't verify it that way because I'm not there. And if Ken ever sees this, he's going to either send me a nasty message or what, but I'm sorry, Ken, you're not that smart. Talking to you about technology is kind of a headache. I mean, he's at least 2 generations above me. He is terrible with a computer. He knows how to Google. That's about it. Whoever does his videos, good on them. The transitions are terrible. His still images are freaking terrible. And some of his theories, I can understand where he's coming from, but I think he's not seeing the big picture. For instance, he told me the stairwell going up to his bedroom.
Hmm.
When you step on a board and it creaks, he's like, that could be a ghost voice. I was like, don't think that's a ghost voice.
Right.
Or if a car goes by, they attach the sound waves and they use that as a means to energize. And I'm just like, I don't know if that works that way. Usually what energizes a spirit is electricity, something with energy. You know, that's how you get orb pictures and dust and all that crap.
Right.
And the whole sound thing, I've played with it, I've tested it. I'm not sure it really works. I think it's just really coincidental.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, you can take a sound and, you know, how he runs it through his digital enhancing and then does all this manipulation to it. And you can get anything. You can make sound. Audio pareidolia is a thing. Right.
I hate that.
Yeah, it's going to happen, you know, especially with you're doing things that, at least in my opinion, you're doing things the way that he's doing them. Some of the stuff that, you know, that I've heard, it's like, okay, that's a voice. You know, the stuff that I captured, like, that's what convinced me ultimately. It was like, okay, like, there's no way Kent could have done this. There's no way. You know what I mean? Now, when I went out there, it wasn't necessarily that I was like there to expose Kent, you know, and I think that really shines through when you watch the third episode and you see our Estus method with Kent in the headphones, because I'm very like, holy shit, I'm very excited, very like, wow, this is happening right now, you know. And I think that if I were there completely on one side of the fence, I wouldn't have been that way, you know what I mean? I went there because I wanted it to be real. You know, I wanted it to be real. However, I had seen so many fake videos and I was so tired of it that I guess Kent kind of caught the blunt end of it, where if I discover that stuff is not accurate or the things that he's telling me isn't real, and I can, you know, recreate any of his videos or things like that, then I'm going to do that. And I felt like, you know, I remember you used the term witch hunt whenever we spoke about it privately, that you used the term witch hunt. And I guess I can get where, because, you know, when you're making a documentary, sometimes you're not thinking of being able to convey absolutely every emotion. And I think it's kind of, it's hard to do, to be able to convey every emotion that led up to, you know, your thoughts on the matter and stuff. But I've never went there specifically to hurt or to expose or to cause trouble. You know, that wasn't what I was trying to do. But you know, so you watched the side by sides of the videos, and that didn't convince you, and which is fine. You know, that's fine. Because you're not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna be, and I could be wrong. You know, that's the other thing. I could be wrong, but there are things there that to me, it just seems way too. I mean, the thing about Mark Swoboda, right? I interviewed Mark Swoboda. Do you know who Mark is?
Is that the his historian?
No, that's Marvin Graves.
Oh.
Mark Swoboda was the guy that Kent did these videos with Mark, and Mark said that he was related to the Mitchells. And so he was a Mitchell descendant. Okay. And then there's videos where he's talking to Mark, and Mark, and it seems as though Mark is telling him that Rachel died in the house. She committed suicide. They knew that she died in that house, which was, he didn't go into any details about how they knew that or anything. And you know, that Rachel Mitchell was this real person and all this. And then when I talked to Mark, Mark is like the sweetest. I believe, and I'm not trying to speak out of turn, and I don't want to offend anybody, but I do believe that he has. I didn't ask, but I think he's got a disability, and he's just such a sweet, sweet man. And I asked him, it's like, had you ever heard of Rachel Mitchell? And he was like, no, I'd never heard of Rachel Mitchell before Kent had told me about her. And then he told me, he's like, I've done all this genealogy on my family, and Rachel Mitchell was never there. Like, she didn't exist. And so that told me that, it was like, so Kent was telling you these stories about Rachel Mitchell. He's like, yeah, he brought her up to me first. And then started asking him questions. And that was the thing. He kind of guided Mark. These are Mark's words, that he kind of guided Mark. And then the interview was kind of pieced together in weird ways. And so that stuff like that, it's like, it's just, to me, it's a smoking gun, that there are stories that he's telling that are not true. And that's, it's one thing to say, okay, maybe I got that wrong, and maybe I should do more research or whatever. But whenever you bring up these things to Kent, like, hey, this is what we found, this stuff isn't accurate, he gets angry. And then I don't really care. I'm just going to use the video anyway. I'm just going to put this in my video anyway. So that bothered me. You know what I mean? But back to your perspective. I apologize. I don't mean to ramble on. So you watch these you're not on the level with me, basically. You feel like, well, just tell me how you feel. Keep going.
Before we go further, the one thing that I also noticed, which makes a lot of sense now, with fuck, I forgot her name.
Rachel.
There's, with Kent, again, I love the dude. He's not smart. Mm-hmm. I think, and again, just my opinion, whatever is going on at the Lamb House, or was going, whatever he was looking into, I think it was messing with him. Mm-hmm. And I've run into things. I mean, look at the Ouija board. I've used that. Mine's right over there. I've used a Ouija board countless times. But the one thing that you can never trust from a Ouija board is it being honest. Mm-hmm. If, let's say, and I don't mean to get morbid, but let's say you died and you were a prankster. What better way to mess with someone than go, hey, I haunt your house. Mm-hmm. And my name is Bob Diddley, and I lived here about 200 years ago. I was a farmer. I had fact. You can check them. Well, then you, as the investigator, are like, okay, well, I'm going to check whatever the spirit is telling me, and then I'm going to talk to people and see if they can claim it. Mm. I have run into mimics. I've run into, I'm going to regret saying this, I've run into Zozo, the Ouija demon. Mm-hmm. He's probably the most annoying out of everybody, but they all like to mess with you. And that was one thing I tried to talk to Ken about, is don't believe everything they say. And his biggest issue is, okay, well, Edmund was a caretaker. Okay, are you telling me this, or is this a fact? Well, this is what they told me. Okay, back it up. But a lot of like with Rachel, my biggest issue is I can never find her.
Yeah,
I don't know if she exists. But at the same time, Kent's not that smart. I don't believe he came up with these stories on his own. I think he was talking to something that wanted to be called Rachel. Again, he found the bones underneath the house. Okay, whose bones are they? Are they even human bones? Mm. Notice he didn't do the test, though, which, I get it. The dude isn't made of money. He's not going to go out and just get bones tested just for the sake of getting them tested. He doesn't have that kind of money. Right. But at the same time, how do you know those are Rachel's?
Right.
Again,
Right. And that's the thing. He's claiming it to be that it is Rachel's, right? Like these are, well, his words were, those could be possibly, maybe Rachel Mitchell's bones. You
as
know,
Spirits told me to.
he's leaving things open.
Yeah, he doesn't know.
Mm.
And then there was the mortuary in the basement. It could have been, but is it? And then there's, well, the trail went cold. Okay.
Mm.
My biggest issue with Ken is don't say it's fact.
Right.
You don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. He's, see, that's the thing though. And when you're telling me is like, so you give him this perspective and he wasn't having some of that. Like, no, that's just not how it is. You were met with like resistance on that? Is that true?
It's more like he was set in his ways. You know how you're talking to an older gentleman? Oh no, back when I was a kid, it was like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but
I do that.
Other ways to do stuff now,
Yeah.
and not always that way is the easiest and or best.
Yeah.
Oh, when I was a kid, I understand, and there's no reasoning with them.
Yeah.
I ran into that a lot.
Mm-hmm. It's, to me, it seems like when you're, and this again, it's just my perspective of it. It seems like when you're coming to him and you're meeting him with this stuff, like, it could be this or it could be this, and it's like, oh no, blah blah blah, and he changes, and it's this, and I know it's this. To me, what that says is this is a guy who's telling a story, and the moment that something that doesn't fit that story, he's going to say no, it doesn't fit that. So he's resisting. That's how I see it. You have to understand I'm being very cynical, right? Because dude, there were listen, the story about him being an informant for the police in Florida, okay? So there's nothing on his background history that even suggests that he had a job like that whatsoever. Nothing. He got in trouble for stealing cable. Actually, he got arrested for stealing cable. That's the only thing that I could find that he was arrested for. I looked further. I did have someone else tell me that he had what was it, that he had gotten into fights and stuff like that, physical abuse and stuff. Now I couldn't confirm that, so I don't know if that's true. But I do know that when he lived in I think it was Arkansas, he moved 17 times in a year. 17 times in a year.
I know that.
Well, that's four times. That's not too irregular. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, I had, like, it happens, right? 17 times in a year. That raises some questions, right? Are you dodging rent? Are you borrowing money from people and dodging them? It's a bunch of questions I don't know, but why are you moving around so much? And then Kenneth, his son, told David, because David and Kent came to David and said, look, and we're talking about David's here, because David has his own business. He does his own construction. He works for himself. And Kent told David that Kenneth needed a job. And while Kenneth and David work together, they're driving to the same place. Kenneth is in the car with David, and he's talking about all of this Ghosts of Carmel Maine stuff. And he flat out told him, it was like, Dad's been Dad. We used to live in a campground because we didn't have any money. Dad was dodging all these people that he had owed money to. And he didn't ever really, like, he would get like these little jobs, but like most of the time he was always trying to, I guess, basically get as much money as he could from whoever or whatever, and then he would move on to the next thing, and he didn't care how he did it. And then he was talking about how there was a video, and I actually noticed this. There was a video with Kenneth where Kenneth clears his throat, and you could tell it's Kenneth. I mean, you can hear, because Kenneth has been talking, and you hear Kenneth clear his throat, and then Kent labels it as a demon voice in the video. And Kenneth was like, that's me. Dad knows that's me, but he's still making these videos saying this and this and this, you know? And so it's like, well, when his own child is saying things like he's exaggerating or he's telling stories, you know, I mean, I'm only left with a certain kind of perspective, you know? And you say Kent isn't smart. You're right and you're wrong, right? Because Kent is smart to a degree. He's, I believe, a master manipulator. And I've dealt with those before, plenty. They make you think they're one way. They let you perceive them one way. But that's not how they really are. They're always 1 to 2 steps ahead, or trying to be. And I've run into it plenty of times. I dated a person like that. And so I've seen all of this, you know, I've dealt with it very personally and very closely. So it just, I guess my point here is that, you know, Kent may seem one way, and I do. That's the other thing. Like, I like Kent. I like the guy, you know, like he was very, very nice, very warm, very welcoming. And I just realized I trailed off a second, but when I met him, you know, he was so nice, and you know, he got pizza, which that's a sure way to win me over, is to just put food in my face, you know.
It's not
But the whole thing about him being an informant, like, you know, he shows me this badge, and it says special officer. Well, I found the exact same fucking badge on Amazon. I found it. That, I believe it's possible. Again, I believe it's possible. I want to make that clear, that Kent may have gotten into some sort of trouble or something like that, and then offered the police information on something to help get him out of trouble, and then spun a story of, well, I used to be an informant. I used to work for the police and all this. There's no history of him actually having any kind of official position as an informant or anything like that. And typically informants don't work for the police. They are just, they're rats, right? They find out information, the drugs are over here, this guy's ordering them or whatever, you know, and they offer up information to get their sentence or whatever it is that they were in trouble for lessened. Now, I don't know that he was in trouble for anything. I don't know if he was ever an informant whatsoever. I'm left with, because, you know, I asked him questions while I was there, and it was like, I'm not comfortable answering those questions. And it wasn't like he was on camera when I asked him the questions. And he specifically told me, don't talk about this in the documentary. And so I'm not talking about it in the documentary. I'm talking about it here with you.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, and it's legal. But that's the thing that, you know, it's you know, again, and it's one of those things, right? Like, because we both like the guy, we both like him. I know he doesn't like me now, you know, or he won't talk to me. He just won't. He will not. I reached out a lot because I felt that would be fair, right? I mean, it would be fair to have him sit and say, look, like, here's where you've got this stuff wrong. But he wouldn't do it. He would not do it. And that tells me that he had nothing to back it up with. He had nothing to argue those points, you know. But back further to I don't mean to interrupt. But yeah, it's just keep going, man. Keep talking. What else? So, I mean, and honestly, listen, you're not going to offend me, okay? I want you to don't hold back. Like, say what it is that you want to say. Tell me where I went wrong. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you would have done. Like, do it, you know?
The documentary itself, you see how long we've talked about Kent and his background?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't expecting any of that in the documentary, because the way you had pitched it, it was about the Lamb House. I didn't give two flying fucks about Kent.
Well, I don't think I did. I don't think I did. I know that the way I pitched I still have the video was, this is a documentary about not only the hauntings but the man himself. I wanted to go into the history, and I wanted to find out more about him. And when I reached out to him, I told him, I want to make it out. I want to talk about you, and I want to learn about you. And I was met with a bit of blowback, like, this isn't about me, this is about the Lamb House, this is about the spirits in this house. He continuously would try to get my attention away from talking about him and his background. So again, I don't mean to interrupt, but when I pitched it, my idea was always, because one of the things that always bothered me about these documentaries or these shows is they'll talk to the person, but they never really investigate the things that the person is telling them so much. They just kind of take it on face value. And then, you hear like, oh, did you hear that? It said Barbara. Oh, wait, Barbara was the caretaker of this house. Blah. You know what I mean? They just they just take what they've been told and then they piece it together, you know what I mean, to fit the narrative of the person telling the story. Right.
It's so annoying.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to do it differently, because and you personally know Kent, right? But there are people who have never heard any of this. Then they've never seen any of this YouTube. They've never. I have people reach out to me now that are like, oh, I just saw this guy on Ghost Con on camera,
Nuke's
and I went. Not even Nuke's Top 5, but like the Ghosts Con on camera. He was on the Discovery Channel.
Oh, yeah. But too.
Yeah. And he was like, I just found this guy on this, and then I found your documentary. Right. So there are people out there that don't know Kent the way you or I mean, you spent more time with Kent than I have. So, you got to keep that perspective too, that it's not just for people who do know who Kent is. You know what I mean? It's for anybody who's never even heard of the story. Go ahead and continue. I'm sorry.
His following, yeah, I'm not afraid to say it, they're a bunch of dumbasses. I can't, after my episode came out, I can't tell you how many people were like, oh my God, screenshot, there's a ghost right there. I'm like, dude, that's not a ghost, that's me standing in the shadows. You're not capturing an apparition, you're capturing me. Knock it off. And it was comment, screenshot. I'm like, dude, you people are delirious. Like, oh my God, he caught orbs. No, that was me walking and kicking up dust.
Right.
That's what that was. Knock it off. Everything's paranormal when it comes to these freaking YouTubers, and it drives me up a wall so much. And I'll never understand why, though. Like, unless
that's because they want something to be a part of. They want it to be real. They want their feelings validated, and they feel that these things do. You know what I mean? That, like, I've seen it too, right? You get into a Facebook group, and it's like, there's a picture of an open meadow. Oh, do you see the ghost? It's like, no, there's no fucking ghost. Yeah. And his fans are like that. He thinks I don't have access to his chat or to his group page. I do. I have loads of people who are a part of that Facebook group that because he blocked me. Well, I don't know if he did it or if it was Lori Bowles or whoever. But they didn't. The moment that you show any kind of resistance or ask questions, they fucking get rid of you. And they call you toxic, and they treat you like shit. They're not very warm and welcoming people at all. Yes, it's our way, or it's or get out. That's how they treat everybody, not just me. They treat everybody that way. One of Kent's family members reached out to me, dude. One of Kent's own family members reached out to me and was like, I like what you're doing. I've always thought this was bullshit. And I appreciate the fact that you're actually getting it out there. Now, what the fuck does that tell you? That one of Kent's own family members has reached out to me, and they were a part of that group. And I know that they got blocked. And now Kent doesn't know who I'm talking about. Nobody in there knows who this person is. I'm pretty sure that he had made some sort of skeptical comment on something. And the moment he did that, they kicked him out. They got rid of him.
What's the relationship with this family member? Is it a good family relationship? Is there?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they're in any sort of quarrel or anything like that, you know. But yeah, he's definitely somebody that I trust, you know, it's not somebody who's mad at Kent. Let's just say that he's not mad at him or anything like that. He doesn't have any. He's not trying to hurt the guy. He just reached out to me and was like, "You have no idea. You know, you have no idea. You've with all the research that you've done, you still have no idea of of the kinds of stories, basically." But anyway, yeah. So Kent's followers, they're very. You were talking about that.
Ken's followers are just they want to be part of something, and they will take anything and run with it. Which is why when I went to, I'm not part of the, was it GOCM fans or something?
Facebook group, yeah.
I've tried twice to be a follower of that, and just the comments alone are just, they're idiotic. It's like, you guys want to be pointing out evidence and whatnot that he may have missed, but honestly, none of you have ever really gone into anything paranormal, and it shows.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie. There's times where he'll say, "Oh my God, that was an EVP." Words will appear. I'll play it back, and I'll be like, I don't know. Mm-hmm. And the biggest issue I have when it comes to evidence is if you actually capture something. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I can rule out anything, I won't sit there and go, "It's paranormal." Because evidently it could be this, it could be that. Okay, well now it could be.
Right.
It could be paranormal too.
Right.
And with Ken, it's like he'd hear things, I wouldn't hear things, or I'd hear things, he wouldn't hear things. And I've run into how sensitive people are. I've run into, I mean, even with my own Ouija board. I have a cross on my finger for a reason. But could I reinvestigate what I investigated with my Ouija board? No. I think that was a once in a lifetime thing. It's like you can't pick and choose what you investigate, when you investigate, or where you investigate. You just have to capture it at the right time, the right moment, if it wants to be captured. And that's with Ken, I feel like, because I've noticed the more you go into this stuff, the more, and I don't want this to sound way too out there, but it kind of like opens your mind a bit more.
Sure. And
I've kind of drifted away from the paranormal, unfortunately, mostly because I run into too much BS. And then I've noticed even myself, I'm not as sensitive as I used to be. And I don't know if it's age because I've been doing this so long or what, but it's like, okay, well, that knock, oh my God, it's paranormal. No, that's the heater turning on. I ran into that in the Lizzie Borden house. Mm-hmm. You know, the more you get into it, the more you're like, oh my God, that was a voice. No, it wasn't.
Right. What's happening there, I think, is not just that, you know, you're saying, well, maybe I'm not as sensitive as I used to be. Well, no, maybe you're just not as gullible. You know, maybe because, you know, you've been doing it for longer, you've learned things, and now you've learned to determine, like, oh no, that was the heater, or that was a sound from outside, or whatever. You've gotten smarter. You know what I mean? You've gotten smarter, as I would hope. Say again.
I verify stuff a lot more now.
Yeah, and that's important to do. That's important.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
What you should be doing. Yeah.
It drives my former team nuts, because they'd be like, dude, this just happened. And I'm like, you mean the thing that this could have triggered? I'm like, I'm not claiming that's paranormal.
Yeah.
Only because it could be this, or this.
Right.
How can you sit there and tell me it's paranormal? And the one thing I run into the most, and the most annoying thing about it, is can anyone really say it was paranormal? I mean, paranormal you can't gauge.
Yeah.
I mean, the cross on my finger is proof that I've been in a possession before, once. But I tell the story and everyone goes, "Oh, maybe you just lost it." And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm semi there. You know, I mean, I've been through stuff, but it's like you weren't there, you don't know.
Right.
So how do you gauge something like that? And that's the one thing I run into in any paranormal group is they're like, well, you have to do it this way, and if it's not this way, it's wrong. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. Like the Estus method. I've had people who can get it to work. I've had people who just tell me gibberish. And what is your name? Green. Okay, is green like the color you're wearing? Apples. What does this have anything to do with anything?
Right.
So it's like, you know, what is the truth and what isn't?
Yeah.
And that's the most annoying part.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You're gonna. I think. Well, that's the thing about paranormal stuff, right? Is it's so. Everybody's beliefs are so much different. You know, like you can get people that are kind of on the same level about certain things and stuff, but we all differ. You know, we all have our own opinions about things. I think it's awesome that you annoy the shit out of your teammates because that means you're doing a good job. You're doing a good job because you're not just taking it at face value. You know, oh, I trust this person, and this person says, oh, this was a ghost. It's like, well, I don't know that that's true, that that's what it was. It could have been this or this or this. And that's phenomenal that you do that. You know, that's awesome. You know,
It's like
yeah,
the guy you have on the inside. You know, you gotta think, well, does the source argue with Kent? Do they have good days? Do they have bad days? Did you talk to him on a bad day? Did you talk to him on a good day? I mean, for me, I've quit my job like 5 times in the last 2 months, and I still wake up at 6 a.m. and go to work. I'll be doing it tomorrow, even though this week has been hell. I mean, just today I was like, nope, I'm done. You guys can take this role. I want the basic. Leave me out of it. But at the same time, I still get up. I still go back and ask myself, why do I do this? Yeah. It's kind of like that at times where you're just like, okay, am I seeing what I'm seeing? Am I hearing what I'm hearing? And am I sure I can't narrow it down to whatever it is? I hate to do it, but I like to think like Sherlock Holmes.
Okay.
That if you take out everything, what are you left with, or something like that?
Right.
I do that a lot, and that's what drives my team or my former team nuts. Is I would sit there and go, okay, but it could have been this, it could have been this, it could have been this.
Right.
And then what are you left with? You're left with a bunch of what ifs. Like, and you were talking about beliefs. Again, you know, I'm not gonna talk shit about Kent's beliefs, but the one thing that drove me nuts is how into his religion he is. Like the thing in his basement. I'm pretty sure it was something dark, something possibly demonic. I think it messed with him a lot. And that was my main reason for I'm like, dude, don't go down that basement alone. Have someone there that can verify that you are seeing what you're seeing, you're hearing what you're hearing. Because, I mean, he had the live wire in the water at one point. And I was like, why would you believe that? Like, first off, why would you touch the water?
Right.
Like, it's stuff like that I'm just like, okay, you know it's dark. You won't talk about it? You know it's demonic, but you want to leave it alone because it goes against your beliefs? Like, I'm sorry, bud, but you're already touching something you shouldn't be touching based on your beliefs. And we won't talk about everything unless it's good.
Yeah.
And
that's it. Yeah. Not to interrupt, but that's the thing, right? Like there was, you know, if okay, let's say that it is all of those things. Let's say it's something demonic. Let's say it. I mean, even if it wasn't, it doesn't matter. If it's a spirit at all, right? it knows that it hears you. It knows you're talking about it. And when you say things like, we're not going to engage, we're not going to talk, we're not going to do this or that, it can fucking hear you saying those things. And if it wants to engage with you, it can do that. It will, because we can't see it. We don't know what you're talking to, what you're engaging at all. It could be this thing. You know what I mean? So the idea of, well, we're just not going to talk to it or talk about it or whatever, that holds no water to me, because if this thing wants your attention, if it wants you to engage, you're going to.
Yep.
You're going to.
That's the thing that in the investigation I did with Kent, there's and I'm so glad he got multiple angles of it because it was phenomenal. Before the investigation, he was telling me that he was having knee issues and it was getting called out. You know, I have the same issue, whatever.
Sure.
So it's me and my ex-wife in the basement. Kent's gone out for a smoke break and left us alone down there. I mean, first of all, dude. And it was, honestly, I was creeped out. I don't like dark basements, and it was darker than dark down there.
Yeah.
There's one point where we're talking to this thing, and all of a sudden this childlike voice comes out. And I think it said hi. And me and my now ex-wife look at each other and we're like, oh, that's cute. Hi. And then you hear ba-boom. And I'm like, oh shit. Kent's knee just gave out. Holy fuck. What do we do? And in the video, you can hear me go, Kent, are you okay? And then like 10 seconds later, he opens the door and he goes, yeah, it knocked over my camera. And I'm like, okay, I'd very much like to see that footage. Only because it was, so you've got I'm not sure how to do this in a reflective surface. The basement door, camera's back here, Kent's back here. I mean, you could easily say Kent walked in and was like, camera.
Right.
But the way it fell was unnatural.
Uh-huh.
I mean, if
and Kent wasn't near it.
No, and you can actually audibly hear that he wasn't in the house because you didn't hear the door open. So I could rule that out easily after I saw the footage. But at the same time, you know, it's like, okay, A, B, gray area. In this area that knocked the camera over. And that's the one thing that I tell any new investigator. You put a camera up, I want another camera on it.
Right.
That way, if that camera decides to go flying for whatever reason, A, we got evidence of the camera going flying, and B, I can see where the camera was sitting. I can see the amount of force it used to push that camera away, and I can see the angle in which this thing tumbled. And you can rule out everything. I mean, camera trickery is really easy to figure out. There's always, if you zoom in on a video, you can see the pixels.
Right.
So if someone were to like blur the image, put another image over it, you can see the inconsistency if you really know what you're looking for.
Right.
And that's the one thing that drives me nuts is everybody was just on it about that. Like, oh, he knocked it over. I'm like, he could have. He could have. However, you hear him open the door.
Right.
Why is nobody talking about him opening the door?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, now we got 100 comments about some bullshit about Kent knocking over the camera. I'm like, I don't think he did.
Yeah. And you're always going to be met with resistance like that, you know.
Especially,
you found. Say it again.
Especially in that fandom.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like these interesting things do happen there. And if you had a camera on the camera and it showed that the camera just fell over.
No, you should always have a camera on the camera.
Oh, but he didn't.
He didn't. I mean, he only had one camera, except for his little early 2000s freaking piece of crap.
The camcorder. Yeah.
That thing is old.
Yeah.
There is a theory like older stuff, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's. We don't know. We don't know if any of that's true. But, so I remember. I love that we're having this conversation. We're having such a good conversation, you know. And this is what I like about this, right? It's like because you're on one side of it, and we haven't really. We're talking about all this other stuff. We still have about an hour before our time is up with StreamYard because they're timing me. We sit on opposite ends of the fence here, right? Like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so by all means, because we keep trailing off, and I think part of it's my fault because you say something and I'm like, oh, I need to comment on this because that's what conversations are. But continue on with, like I said, don't hold back. Say the things that you want to say about it. My position, my documentary, and what I did.
The documentary I felt was a bit biased. It was like you wanted to focus, or you started off with this picture, and then it went like this. But the documentary should have been over here. And that's where you lost me. I thought it was going to be about this, but it went too far this way.
Now, okay, so determine the separation. It should have been focused on this. What is this?
Lamb House, Kent. Like, it started off here, but it went down here. And I was like, another video about Kent. I don't care about Kent. I don't want to hear a video about Kent. I want to hear about Lamb House.
Sure. Well, which I did. I mean, I did do that. You're right. And the reason why it started to focus, like you're saying, is because that was where the story was leading. That was where the story was. That's just the story that was being told to me. This is what I had. These are the discoveries I made. This is what I found. So that's why it gradually focused more so on Kent. I mean, and I was looking for paranormal evidence. By all means, I was looking for it. And actually, I thought I didn't have any until I went back like a 100th time and found those voices where I was like, oh shit, like something is happening here.
I run into it all the time.
Yeah.
It's so obnoxious.
Now, one of the points that I was talking about, the reason why I made the documentary, where it kind of folded into, is the idea of faking things, right? And your perspective on that. Can you tell me what your perspective is on that?
On the idea of faking things, or the idea that he's faking things?
Yes.
That's helpful. Is he faking things? I think he what's it called? Tunnel vision. I think he gets a little bit, and then he's like, oh, I got something. I need to focus on that. And it's almost like a hyperfixation. But that goes back to my original theory of this thing's messing with him. It's like, here, let me give you a little bit of breadcrumbs. You follow that trail, and we'll see what happens. And I've told Kent this. I'm like, you got to be careful with what you're talking to because you don't know. And it with Rachel, his biggest issue is he developed this weird relationship, almost like a bond with this thing. If you ask anybody that's ever dealt with demonic stuff, that's stage one. You don't develop them. Because then you let them in, you let them into you, and essentially you give them more access to do whatever the hell they want.
Right.
And playing with something you don't know. And I feel like he was given these breadcrumbs, followed a path, narrowed it down, and was given, this is the only thing I'm left with. It has to be fact. And I ask him, this question, did you watch the video? Yeah, I watched a stupid fucking video. Why do you keep going back to that point? And it didn't dawn on me until about 30 minutes or 20, 30 minutes ago. There's this thing called a Tomapa.
Okay.
It's basically the idea that if you give too much of an idea energy, it then manifests. They did an experiment in the 80s called the Philip Project.
Yeah.
They took a piece of paper, wrote down Philip Seymour, age 32, works here, has 3 kids, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, we're going to talk to Philip. Well, how does that work if you just made them up?
Right.
Well, they start experimenting, they start investigating. All of a sudden, Philip's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the Zozo phenomenon, and I hate saying his name, but I believe that's what that is. It's the belief that this person used a Ouija board, 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 all manifested into an actual entity that now, whenever somebody uses a Ouija board, they're going to get that. And if you go Google Zozo phenomenon, you'll get like a billion stories about the Ouija demon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that could be what Rachel is. I'm not saying it is, obviously, but again, breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love Kent and all, but it's like you should be smarter, like Mr. Informant.
Yeah. 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 And so, but I guess you were hung up on the fact that my memory creation was slower than his.
Yes.
Which is fair. It was slower, and it was because I have a theory as to why that, because one thing that people don't know is that in Kent's room there's a hole in the floor that's covered up by a grating. That's where the old stovepipe used to go through.
Is that the one near his desk?
Yeah. It's just behind his desk, just behind him. And I think he was using that as a pulley for the fishing line. And when you use something like that as a pulley, it would make that move a bit faster, shooting underneath the bed. And I didn't have access to anything like that. I tried to do it as best as I could. But you're not convinced that video was fake, right?
I'm not convinced that it was fake, but I'm not convinced it's 100%.
Okay.
And the reason I say that, it's the skeptic in me. Mm-hmm. It looks good. It looks like actual evidence that is just so cool. But at the same time, it looks like a damn shirt going under the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, you got to go, okay, well, could it be this, or this? Right. And then you're left going, well, I can't narrow it down. So why are you calling it evidence?
Yeah.
It's cool, but.
Yeah. And that's why I said that, it's like I'm left with the conclusion that this is meant to deceive you. I'm left with that because of the fact that I was able to I feel like I recreated it fairly well, especially how it peels off the window. I mean, that like, to me, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back here, but it's like, I fucking nailed it. I feel I nailed that coming off the window. It looks exactly the same the way I did it.
Jimmy?
Go ahead. Yeah.
You're really lagging.
Am I?
Yeah.
Not on my end, I'm not.
All right, I fixed it. I don't know what that was about. Say that again. Right. I'm
sorry. I was saying that the way that I got it to peel off the window, like when you look at those side by side, like they look really good. Like the one that I did compared to his looks really good. And that's why I'm saying, like, I'm left with the idea that, it wasn't genuine. But the further than that, I mean, there was something, and I told you this because when I was making the final stretch of the 4th episode, the last part of it, your voice on the
last 30 minutes.
Yeah, the last 30 minutes of the 4th episode. Yeah.
Okay.
When I was making that, because you and I had a talk, and I remember when the 2nd episode came out, I actually didn't get to read all of your comment, because I'd asked you to go over there and take a look at it, and you were very critical, and I think you started getting some blowback from other people, and then your comment disappeared. So I didn't ever get to really read it, but I know that you were quite critical of the things that I was saying and stuff. And one of the things that you had said was, and I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, because I think you're a great dude. I think you're a great dude, especially having a conversation like this. Like, this is the most what's the word? Like you're not being a jerk, and you're on. You like Kent. You're Kent's fan, dude. Every one of Kent's fans have been total fuck bags to me, but you're not being that way at all. So I don't want anybody to get the impression that I'm trying to make you look bad, because I don't. That's not what it is at all. But you said, if it's fake, who cares? Who cares if it's fake? And that was something that I replayed in my head over and over again as I was making that last stretch, right? And
talked about that, yeah.
So can you give me some insight onto why you feel that way?
If it's fake, what does he get out of it? Publicity? Okay, he's an old, love Kent. He's not like the youngest guy, and he's got health problems. YouTube doesn't pay jack shit, especially for the viewership he has. And I don't really see what he would get out of it, especially since he's closed doors. So
yeah, he has now, yeah.
It's like, why? Why would you go through all this trouble for 15 minutes of fame? Great. I love you, Kent, but you're not young.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'll be honest. Last time I saw him, he was thin.
Yeah, and he's thinned down quite a bit.
Yeah, he's yeah. Again, love Kent, but there's no reason to fake it, and I don't think he's naive in terms of how to investigate, to like start actually getting evidence. There's times where I'll watch a video and I'm like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. Like, could have started it out this way. You probably would have gotten better questions or better answers if you asked these questions and stuff like that. But there's no reason why he would fake it. I can't think of a single one, especially when he brings his family into it. Now you've got to bring other people into it. You originally had other players in the background that you had. Now you got them coming out. It's like, if he is smart, he would have figured all this out beforehand. Or at least I would hope so. And I don't see a reason why he would fake it.
Okay. One of the things that you said was, what's he hurting? What's he hurting? If he is faking it, then he's got a what was it you said? Oh, a nice side hustle. That's what it was. If he is faking it, this is something that you said to me, like in text, so he's got a hustle. What damage is he doing? Do you remember saying those things? Do you remember that?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And then you watched the last 30 minutes of my thing, and I think that spoke for it, right? As to what I believe is the damage. Now you're saying you can't think of any reason why he would fake it, but
here's the nasty comment. And I love Kent, I do. His stuff isn't as good as he would like it to be, or as good as it could be if he were to fake it. Mm-hmm. I mean, he got nuke, he got caught on camera, but you never see that stuff anymore. I mean, nuke, if you're on YouTube, you'll see it. But Discovery, I don't even know if Discovery plays that. Well, then again, I don't have cable either. But it's like, I don't think he's getting a blowback from it. Or what do they call that? Kickback?
You mean money?
Yeah. I don't
royalties.
Yeah. And even then it was like a 15-minute segment, if I remember it correctly. It wasn't the main focus of the episode.
Sure.
So it was a side piece.
Yeah.
And respectfully I say that. But his stuff is mostly EVPs, and how do I word this? It's narrative. Mm-hmm. It's just information. Mm-hmm. And again, I love the paranormal. Show me more paranormal. And again, you're not always going to get, the ghost figure in the video clear as day. You'll get that like 1 out of a million if you're lucky. So I get that. And then I look at how he investigates, and I'm like, okay, well, that's why you're not getting half the shit that you want to get. But it's not. I mean, I don't watch his videos anymore.
Yeah.
I just
Well, he doesn't put anything out anymore either. He hasn't for the last thing he put out was his response, which about the Lamb House, you know, which I know I remember one of your arguments was that you had seen the documents that proved that the Lamb House was a funeral home or whatever, that he had shown them to you. But my problem with it is the names of the roads had changed. Main Street used to be a different street, and because it was all done before Eisenhower and before all the road system had changed, and so they changed the name from Main Street, Main Street, and what Clint lives on is Main Road. They switched those around because Main Road goes to like Bangor, where originally Main Street went to the town the other direction. I don't know which is north or south from there, but that was my argument against it, was that, you know. And then I remember he showed a piece of mail, right, that said the Lamb House 804 what the fuck ever Main Road, and it was in one of those envelopes that had the clear piece of plastic on on it, you know, like the cellophane or whatever. That didn't exist back in fucking 1910 or what the fuck ever. Like, it was, I could find something on the internet to subscribe to get information on, right? Like, oh, I want healthcare information, right? And it's my address, right? My address, but then I put the Lamb House on the fucking in the name area. They're gonna mail it to the Lamb House at that address. You know what I mean? Like, so it was weak. It was weak.
Did you see the book?
Which book? The book about the gray book? So Marvin Graves and his wife wrote that book.
You can buy it at the Carmel.
At the Historical Society.
I was this close to buying it.
Yeah. Marvin and his wife wrote that book. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I looked it over quite a bit, but it was always the book. The Book
of Shadows.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Clever title.
Mm-hmm. He's good at that.
That's where I joined in. I was like, what book are they talking about? And of course, he had just filmed what the book was talking about. So I got well, did you see the video?
Yeah.
Well, I went back, because I've been to the Lamb House quite a few times. I went back and I was like, can I please just see the book?
Mm-hmm.
He went into his bedside table, opened it, pulls out this purple folder. You can buy them at like Walmart for like $2. Purple folder, and it had the deed of the house, or not the deed of the house, a copy of the deed of the house, Edmund Lamb on it. It had the book, and it had a few other things. I think the map of the triangle was there too. So he's kept it all together, and I questioned it, mm-hmm. because first of all, he talked about the triangle a lot at one point. Mm-hmm. It was so far-fetched and so stupid. The third time I went out there, I took my EMF meter. I walked that triangle, and that thing was all the way red the whole time. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, he's on an energy field. That's interesting. Yeah. First off, how? Secondly, what?
Yeah.
And thirdly, how? Like, how does something like that happen?
How, what, and how?
Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
No, you're right, and that's the thing, right? Like, you know, they say like power lines and stuff like that will set it off, and they do, and power lines will set it off hardcore. However, not when you're on the ground and the power lines are up here and you pull out an EMF, it's not going to read. Like, you kind of have to it's going to read, but it's not going to do what it was doing there. I agree with you. Like, there is definitely a lot of EMF in that area because
Yeah.
it was always the EMF meters were always baseline reading at like 2 to 3 lights all the time in his house. And then when we left the house, we kept the EMF meter going and we left town, and it stayed strong until we were about 3 miles outside of town.
I count railroad tracks.
Huh?
So if you're coming from the southwest on his map and going up to the south side to where the gas station and the lamp house, Masons are over here, Society's over here. If you come in this way, it starts just behind the train tracks. And as you go over the train tracks is where it starts to go like that. And then as you get closer, it just gradually starts and then it just stops and it stays right there. Yeah, I was like, this is fucking weird. And I feel bad because I kind of called him a liar on some of the things, but I wanted to see it for myself. I mean, to sit there and say I live on an energy field. Okay, did you just catch it at the right time? Because if you live on an energy field, I should be able to make the same thing. And I did, which still to this day, I don't understand how. I mean, they don't, in Maine, they don't bury their power lines. The internet wouldn't work that way out there. I mean, I don't even know what kind of internet he has, but Carmel's not that big. So I know it's not fiber optics.
Right.
So, and I measured from the middle of the road all the way to the ditch is where I lost the signal going north. South, it's a really, really big energy field. But I to make that big of an energy field with no power anywhere around there except for the power lines above your head, like what, 16 feet up?
Right.
But even from the middle of the road to the power lines was like what, 60 feet? I couldn't get a reading from the power lines. Right. We're like right up on it to get like that. It's actually, I just got a new EMF. It's one of the ones he has where it has the needle.
Okay.
That way I can sit here and go, okay, it's up only about that much. So that is what, 1100 Gauss.
Okay. Yeah, it's Gauss, milligauss or whatever.
Yeah, that way I can get a reading and be like, okay, we got EMF level this 100 milligauss. Why? Yeah.
I mean, I don't have the answer. Yeah.
You take it to a cell phone and you turn the cell phone on, and then goes right up to red. So and then you pull it back, goes right down to 0. So like somewhere around here is where the energy field is because everything gives off a fucking signal. Yeah.
You were making a point though, because you brought up the book for a reason. What was because we were talking about the Lamb House not being, or I was talking about it, and then you brought up the book, and I think again we trailed off. What was your point about the book?
He's authentically organized facts that he's put together, and he keeps them relatively close within arm's reach so that you can look back on it. Again, A, B, gray area. So I know he's actively investigating the gray area, but he, again, A to B is what he relies on, and it drives me nuts. But he's kept it all in this thick packet with the book right inside. Yeah. And I remember watching the video and going, that's what the damn book was about. That all the book. And it's like that big, and he keeps it in a purple folder. Really? Yeah. I was so disappointed.
Yeah.
I was expecting down.
Well, didn't he say that he discovered that book? How did he do you remember how he said he came into possession of that book? Because you were the one that brought up the book to me in the first place. I remember that. It was one of the first things we talked about because you wanted to know more about that. Did he? I don't remember if he talked about how he came into contact with the book or not, or how he became in possession of it.
It was when he was investigating the Historical Society. If you're looking at the map, that white building. Yeah. And he picked it up there. And he put it in the purple folder, threw it into a drawer, kind of forgot about it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of stories in that book like the story about Naomi Mitchell. That's how he discovered the story about her. And then his narrative on the fact that J. Sherman Gray, he didn't believe that J. Sherman Gray murdered her, even though he ran off and hid in the woods for 3 fucking days. If you're guilty, or if you're not guilty, rather, you wouldn't do that, would you? Right? You wouldn't run and hide. Why did he run and hide in the first place? You know? So, and that was a thing that kind of bothered me, because he was talking to Mark about it and saying to Mark, like, well, you know, I don't believe he did it. And then he turned around and said that the Mitchell family didn't believe that J. Sherman Gray murdered her, which they didn't even have any beliefs on it other than what they were told until Kent started talking to him about it. You know what I mean? And that's when he was like, oh, well, that's interesting. But he still, when I talked to Mark was like, I couldn't verify any of these things that he was telling me. He's telling me a bunch of stuff that's crap. Those are his words, you know? And that's the thing, man. It's like he finds these stories and then he spins them, and he's a good storyteller. And I've talked to more people. I've talked to people who worked with Kent, people who had jobs with Kent, and they all tell me the same thing. He's such a nice guy. He's got a lot of stories. He's a good storyteller. He's got that gift of gab, you know, like he's just a likable person. And you know, it's listen, if he were to be saying something like, if he were to make up a story, right, and write a story like Stephen King, that's one thing, you know what I mean, and take inspiration from Edmund Lamb and call him Edward Bam or what the fuck ever, you know, and make another story out of it, that's completely fine. But when you're going around and saying things like Edmund Lamb raped and murdered Rachel Mitchell because she was pregnant, or Rachel killed herself because she was knocked up by a black guy, and like all of these different stories, none of it's real. I mean, the stuff about Edmund Lamb was a good person. He was a good person who he funded the church. He did a lot of things in the community, you know, and Edmund Lamb also has no living relatives. That family has died out. I found that out. But regardless, he was still a person. And even though he's dead and gone, and nobody would be talking about Edmund Lamb right now if it wasn't for Kent. I'll give him that, right?
Yeah.
Like, no, you know, but nobody, even in death, deserves a bunch of bullshit being said about them that isn't true or verifiably fact. You know what I mean? And so that kind of bothered me, because, you know, poor Edmund Lamb can't defend himself. You know, he's gone, you know, and here's this crazy stories about all this stuff. And it just seems like it's a sensationalized version of what actually did go down. And a lot of it didn't go down, you know. Here's another question, right? So, he told me, and I've got it all on film, that, well, they told me that Rachel was shot, that he shot her. Okay. So let's say he shot her. You shot her in that fucking house, and you've been in that house. There's no insulation in there. Everyone would have heard the gunshot. You know, anyone close to him would have heard the gunshot. Doesn't talk about that. He doesn't talk about that. And then also we can't confirm unless we find her bones, and then in those bones we find some sort of bullet hole. Well, there's your proof. But again, it's like what you were saying. He says these things as if they're fact, but does not do it. It's just, well, based on what the spirits have told me. That's another fucking thing that he does, that, like, it's his way of not taking responsibility for the things that he's saying, because he knows they're fucking bullshit.
You know? A lot of investigators do that, and it's really obnoxious.
Yeah, it doesn't make it right.
You have a story, yes.
Right.
But who's to say that story is right?
Exactly.
Did I ever tell you my personal connection to Carmel?
No, go ahead.
So before, no, this would have been after. Yeah, because I met my aunt at a pizza joint in Unity. Um, I was talking to my aunt right after we had gotten done in Carmel. Uh, she's got to be like 50 something now, 54, I think, something like that. And I was like, we just got done an investigation. And she goes, oh, where at? I'm like, Carmel, Maine. She goes, oh, I've been there. I'm like, you've been to Carmel? She goes, yeah. We when we were kids, we went out there. We did some ghost shit. I'm like, wait a minute.
Huh.
My aunt was a paranormal investigator. She goes, yeah, we were investigating some road. We were talking to the spirit Naomi. I'm like, excuse me?
Hmm.
And I mean, how many Naomis are buried in that cemetery? I only counted one.
Yeah.
And the fact that there is a Naomi there kind of blew my mind. But also, I have descendants that had a store out in Carmel, which if you have the book, you can open it, and my name is, or my family's name is somewhere in that book under
I don't know.
the what do they call it, consensus.
Okay.
Didn't know that though until after.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. Small towns, man. How far away? You say 45 minutes away?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. That's cool. That's cool. Um, yeah, and I mean, to me, I guess, obviously the story about Naomi, it was kind of a famous story. It was a famous story that went, a lot of like,
really.
yeah, because I mean, what was a gruesome, brutal murder, and a poor 14-year-old girl murdered by this guy he was working on a farm. I think he had a construction job. My theory, or I hate using the word theory, but that's what it is at this point, is that so he was working at this place, and then you know how it is, right? Like you have a job. Once you're done with the job, you stop at whatever gas station or whatever store, and then you go home. You know what I mean? Like you go there and you get your food or your cigarettes or whatever. Now, back then, I don't know how. Well, cigarettes were sold like that back then at stores and stuff. But anyway, he was going to this store every day, and Naomi had been there a couple times during the same time of day, and he had been watching her. And then these guys, which this part is true, verifiably, it's written down. These guys that he was with, that he had been working with, were like, "Hey, oh, you like her? Why don't you go fuck her?" Now Marvin used the term "go and date her" because Marvin's 91 years old and he's a gentleman.
Oh, that's cute.
But yeah, why don't you go and fuck her? So he did. That's exactly what happened. He took her and he followed her and he pulled her off to the side of the road and he did what he did with her, and then he murdered her and there was parts of her body dangling from the trees and shit. Like really gruesome, craziness. Yeah, so it was a more, I'm sure it's died off now. A lot of people don't talk about it now, but gosh, that happened in 1914, right? He was 14 years old. And stories like that, especially in small towns, small towns rarely forget stuff, even it's part of their history, so yeah, that's interesting. It's interesting that your aunt? Yeah, your aunt went and was looking into it and stuff. That's pretty cool.
Especially
Um,
they're 30 to 40 years ago before me.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I hate the idea of that you felt it was biased. And can you tell me why? Why did you feel that I had like a biased perspective?
Way too much focus on Kent. There wasn't enough of the spirits. It was mostly about Kent's background. Is he faking it? Could he fake it? This is how he faked it. And it was like the narrative from here and here. It just slowly, right. And this was the focal point.
Right. Well, like you said earlier, right? Like when it comes to spirits and you're doing ghost hunts, rarely do you find anything. Yeah. So at the time, I mean, I had what I had, which wasn't a whole lot. I would say less than 10 things that happened that I was like, wow, this is fucking weird. right?
Yeah, that's on average.
That was something that I captured, that I could show. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That I could, you know. So when you're left with okay, this is what I can show, and these are these interesting things, you can either beat a dead horse and just use those 5 or 6 things over and over and over again, or you can continue on like doing investigating, which is what I was doing, like talking to David, talking to Marvin. And listen, I did reach out. I reached out to Kent himself and was like, is there anybody that you have a good relationship that I could talk with, you know? Because I wanted people to like what you're doing right now, you know. And I wish I had thought about you before. But at the same time, I had this thought earlier. There are a lot of things that you've said that if I were to cut up and stuff, it can make it seem like I'm trying to do something that I'm not. So I like the fact that this interview, which I will release in its entirety, I'm not going to do any kind of cutting. You know what I mean? Yeah. I
Yeah,
know. Yeah. I'm not gonna edit any of it because it's important to get your perspective without the edits. You know what I mean? It's important to get those. I mean, I would have loved to have had a group of 3 or 4 of you. You know, I reached out to, and I'm not going to say her name, but the lady who lost her children. That when I don't want to say her name because of legal stuff. I mean, I could say it, but because I'm not an asshole, and she asked me, she said, I don't want any part of your story. That's exactly what she said. I'm not gonna bring her name up. But I wanted to talk to people like that, but he stopped me from being able to do it. I also wanted to talk to that guy, Kevin, who lived in the house before him. And while I was there, huh?
the schoolhouse.
No, he lived in the house that Kent lives in.
Oh, the previous owners.
Yeah, Kevin, or the guy because it's a rental home. You know, Kent doesn't own the home. He rents it from I can't remember the guy's name now, but he rents it from somebody who owns like a bunch of buildings in Carmel. And there was a guy that lived there before him named Kevin, who Kent had in a video with him. Kent had him in a video with him. And I asked Kent, can you get a hold of him? He said, yeah, I'll get a hold of him. Yeah, that'd be great. And then every time I'd ask him, oh, I can't get a hold of him. I don't know. I don't know what he won't return his phone calls or blah, blah, blah. You know, it was like there was some reason why I couldn't get to talk to Kevin, which that, you know, that was the fact that he didn't want me. I felt like he didn't want me to talk to him. He definitely didn't want me to talk to his wife or his granddaughter about it, even though he put his granddaughter on the fucking news with him. His granddaughter was on the news. So that was okay.
Paranormal investigators.
Yeah, but what's the difference? What's the difference of, I mean, he put it on the news. The news. How many people watch the fucking news every night? You know what I mean? So
about that.
Yeah. you know, I see just inconsistencies there. You know what I mean? If it was one thing when he knew what the news crew was doing and that they were promoting him, that was okay. But when he was unsure about what my documentary was really going to be about or where it was going to go, no, you can't talk to these people. I'm not, you know. And I mean, okay, I'll give him this. Maybe after she did that, maybe after she was on the news, people at school saw her and teased her. That's possible. And so maybe that's why. And now here's the thing, right? I'm giving him ammunition right now to fire back at me, right? By saying those things. I'm giving him an out as to a reason why. You know what I mean? By saying that. Because we don't know if she had any kind of blowback. I would imagine possibly, because kids are cruel, you know.
Nowadays.
Yeah, it's off, dude. This girl, this fucking, I mean, this is off subject, but there's this cop that lives in a town called Brownsburg, not too far away from me. His 14-year-old daughter, beautiful girl, oldest of his children, his firstborn baby, fucking shot herself, dude. Shot herself over being bullied, dude. And I don't know the guy, but dude, that fucking wrecks me so much. Like, after having a child, like, I could not imagine. I feel so fucking bad for him. But it's just, yeah, anyway, I mean, people are bullies. So protecting your granddaughter, okay, I'll give you that. Maybe that's what you were doing. That's fine. But at the same time, you know, why, when I wanted to talk to other people, when I Adam Berry, this guy that he is very good friends with.
Yep.
Adam Berry, I reached out to him. He didn't even write me back. He didn't even write me back. And I saw, because there was this, Kent did a response video on his Facebook group, and Adam Berry was in there saying, yeah, he reached out to me and I didn't respond to him. You know, Lori Bowles, same thing. Quit reaching out to me. You're, you know, calling me all kinds of names and shit. And it was just like, you have no idea what I'm doing. You know, you see the first couple of episodes, and I left it pretty ambiguous. Like, it's like, I think something's weird here. I don't know. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. I'm trying to figure these things out. And I was just, like you said, you know, like, if you're not on the level with them, then they don't want to fucking talk to you. They're going to treat you like shit. And it sucked because, like you said, you felt it was biased. And I really did my best to try to not for it to not be biased, right? I wanted to, again, talk to Kent like you and I are doing right now. If I could have had this with Kent, that would have been amazing, because then he could have cleared up all this stuff. He could have, you know, told me how wrong I was. And you know, he could have shouted and screamed at me. I would have let him do it. You know what I mean? So yeah. I'm not afraid to enter. I'm not afraid of that, you know? But there are all these things to me that, and even yourself, you said, it's like, well, even if he, you know, is he faking? He could be, right? Like, he could be, but why? Right? And you think it doesn't add up, like, for 15 minutes of fame. I think he, you know, even the 15 minutes of fame can pay off. He had all kinds of people interested in him. He started getting all this attention. Countless podcasts that he was on. You know, he started getting attention. You reached out to him after you saw him on the news. Yep. You know, I mean, he got what he wanted. People were looking at him. People were focused on him. And then for him to say on the live news that he doesn't monetize. Well, at the time, so I know he monetizes now, and he told everybody that he was going to monetize that. Well, the reality of it is, though, at the time when monetization was a thing, up until, I don't know, let's see here, probably the last few years, I would say probably last 4 years, 3 years, somewhere in there.
Yeah, somewhere.
When you were monetized, there was no way to see that other than, like, there are ways, but there wasn't a public way unless you dug to go and look for those things, until they started making it to where you could only sell t-shirts or only have memberships and shit like that if you were monetized. And so then that was a public thing. And so that was why I don't have, this is just a thought, but I think that once those things became a feature on YouTube, well, then he had to be like, hey, I'm monetized. I'm monetizing, and here's why, you know. But I know that he was monetized the whole time. We have textual evidence from him to Ben Elliott. Ben Elliott was the guy that got him on Paranormal Caught on Camera, got him on the news. I'm sorry?
The manager? Or
like, he was like an agent sort of for him. Yeah. He's a distributor. He has a company called Rural Chaos TV. He was the guy, because Kent worked with Ben. And I don't know who reached out to who first there. I didn't ask those questions. I should have. I don't remember. I mean, I might have asked. I don't remember if Ben reached out to him about it or if Kent reached out to Ben. But excuse me. The point of those conversations was, in all of them, I'm finally set up to be monetized. And this was before he made his announcement. This was years before. This is 2018, 2000, early 2009, because he blew up in 2019.
Which announcement?
Well, so he announced to everybody that, hey, I have to be monetized. He did it on his Facebook group.
Yes,
like, I have to be monetized and all this. I'm going to monetize the channel, is what he was saying. But he was monetized the whole time, and telling people that he wasn't. And I have proof of this. Okay, that's a lie. That's a lie. He lied about being monetized the whole fuck. As soon as he was able to be monetized, he got all the bank shit together. He got everything together to do it. And really, he hangs on this idea of, well, when you're bringing in funds like this, you have to have a business account, you have to have business, all this stuff. That's not true. I have been including, I've had a YouTube channel for like 11 years that's made me money, and you have to make a significant, like over $800 before you have to claim taxes on it. And you can do that as an individual. You don't have to have an LLC. You don't have to be incorporated. You don't have to have any of that. You can just yeah. So he hangs on, and again, this is speculation. I always have to say that. I always want it to be, well, to be out there, because I have to be careful about how I say things. He, I believe, hides behind these ideas of, well, you have to have this business and you have to have these accounts and stuff, because most people don't have YouTube accounts or YouTube channels that are making them money, right? Most people use YouTube for consuming, So I think he hangs and hides behind the ignorance of people who just don't fucking know. You know what I mean? But I know that he was monetized from the moment that he was able to be monetized. He was monetized. Now, why lie about that? Why? I don't understand lying about that at all. He said that was like, oh well, if it could discredit me if I'm taking money. I was like, why? I mean, I don't think it discredit. And now listen, I don't like Zach Bagans, but I don't think it discredits Zach Bagans that he makes money off of it. I think what discredits Zach Bagans is the bullshit that he fucking says.
Yeah.
It's the same sort of situation. I don't think that it would have discredited Kent to be like, I'm monetized at all. What discredited him to me was the stories about Rachel Mitchell. Rachel Mitchell did not exist. Now, okay, let's say it's an entity that was created much like this Philip that you brought up, right? I know that story. Okay.
It's a good story.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let's say she exists now or whatever, like, okay, that's fine, but he's telling these other stories like this, getting Mark Swoboda out there and telling him like, oh, well, you had an extra cousin that you didn't know about that was murdered by Edmund Lamb. Those are the kinds of things that discredit him to me, and then, the stuff that he did to David Sear. He painted David Sear a very certain way to everybody.
Well, is he the Ghosts of Carmel Maine guy?
David Sear was the guy that, worked with Kent for the first year of Kent of Ghosts of Carmel Maine. He worked with him. David wasn't doing anything. Kent's wife worked with David's wife over at that gas station, and then they were talking, and then Kent finds out about David, and he approached David, and then to have him out digging holes and doing all this stuff, it's like, why are you doing that? And then for David to have a response about, so he left Ghost of Carmel. He didn't get kicked out. He left Ghost of Carmel Maine because he caught on to Kent's stories. He caught on to Kent, and then he actually had just ghosted him. Wasn't talking to him anymore. And then people started asking, where's David? What's going on? And so they reached out to David, and David's like, well, I don't think that I don't think it's true. I think and here's why. And so once he did that, well, then Kent starts this smear campaign against him and starts saying that he's a drug addict. And then he had his two minions, the moderators of his Facebook, saying things that weren't true, that David was out taking money from people and not finishing jobs. And it was just all a big smear campaign. It was all a bunch of bullshit. And David, dude, I know you haven't met David face to face. David is, dude, top-notch fucking guy. Like he's integrity, hard fucking worker, fucking never did any drugs, like anything. I mean, he might have experimented with pot or whatever, well, I know that, but dude, he was in the Army. I didn't bring that up in the documentary because I wasn't trying to play a violin for the guy. And he's not trying to hang on any of that, but he's a veteran, dude. He's a fucking, and for Kent to kind of come at him the way he did, and for David to then have a way to kind of speak back about it. or talking to Marvin. Marvin was not there saying anything shitty about Kent whatsoever. Marvin never ever said like Kent's full of shit. He never ever talked about Kent in a bad way at all. I asked Marvin for facts, and Marvin gave me those facts, and those facts did not add up to the things that Kent was saying.
Not
Now,
to go off. How much time do we have before we have to go to a part 2?
10 fucking minutes. Actually, if we do continue on, I'll have to set up the stream a bit. It's not streaming, by the way. I'll have to set up I'll have to set it up differently. If you want to continue, we can, but if you want to wrap it up in the next 10 minutes too, we should do that.
No,
because I know that you've got other things to do.
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, if you want to continue, we can.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as I'm saying, like, I hate the idea, and I feel like that was part of Kent's motivation to so if I don't have people to talk to that can tell us how great of a person Kent is, well, then I look biased, don't I? I look like I'm out, as the term was, a witch hunt. I look like I'm out trying to paint him in a certain point of view. And I wasn't trying to paint him in any particular point of view. I was just showing the facts and the story that I was given. And that's what I had to share, and it's too bad that he cut me off, and honestly, if I had you in the documentary, like I said, I don't feel like you would have been able to really say. I think it could be argued like, oh, well, even because you've said great things about Kent, and I would have put those things in there, but I think it's more important for everybody to be able to see the whole thing entirely as it, I think that'll do a much better service,
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I believe I tried talking to David at one point via Facebook. I think it lasted about 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't like me. I don't know why, but I was like, I want to know the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't give it to me. I was like, come on, dude.
Well, that seems weird. Like, were you defending Kent? Were you kind of coming at him at that angle, maybe?
It was more or less, I just want to know both sides. But I think kind of where Kent's at right now, they want to put it behind him. Which I don't really blame him. I mean, what, 5, 6, 7 years of this crap, and he's still having to come up with it. Like, sure. I don't blame him too much for wanting to just be done and over with it. So I kind of I was like, whatever, you don't want to talk, whatever.
Yeah, was it fresh at the time too?
It's like 3, 4 years after.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it wasn't a lot of time had passed, but it wasn't a little bit of time had passed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so 3 or 4 years after would have been like 2022, 2023.
Oh no, it was before that.
And then it was still fresh because that whole thing went down in 2019. The whole thing between him and David went down in 2019. Yeah, it was actually fresh when I went out there, and I wouldn't have known anything about David had I mean, I guess I could have found it on my own, but Kent kept bringing him up continuously, bringing him up, shit talking him, what a piece of shit he was. He was out riding his snowmobile around because he knew that people were at Kent's house, and he was trying to fuck with Kent and all. Like, it was really narcissistic in a lot of ways. It was all about Kent, and David was just this awful person. He really painted him out to be an awful person to me, and I was like, why? Why would this guy go out of his way to do all this shit? You know what I mean? So that's why I reached out to him,
I was like, why? Just why?
Yeah.
Is Ghosts of Carmel Maine still a thing?
It's still up, but he doesn't really do anything. He doesn't recreate video. Like you said, and especially after the documentaries come out, it's one of those things where he's like, finally, the fucking story of what really happened is out there. And so he's kind of like, you know, we have bonded over that, and he and I are going to be lifelong friends over all that. But I think it's like you said, like it's behind him now. He can finally like, and I mean, it wasn't like he was hung up on it, you know, he wasn't hung up on it.
No, it's the
But
people that would pester him about it.
right. And so he, you know, he can put it behind him. Now I think Kent wants to put it behind him for a different reason, you know.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't blame him at that point. My inner investigator's like, why would you close doors? But at the same time, with something like that happens, I kind of understand why he'd want to not touch that side of life or afterlife.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, and this might just be the inner investigator in me, but I'm just like, let me investigate one more time, please.
Yeah.
You know, I've actually last time I talked to him, I was like, dude, hear Jimmy out.
Yeah.
Yell at him, scream at him all you want, whatever. I don't care. But don't sit in silence.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I don't quite understand. Like, if you're gonna continue making one more video, two more, three, whatever. However, I know he's last time I talked to him, he's only gonna make a few more videos, and then he just wanted to be done with it. Which, like I said, I understand, but at the same time, it's like, speak your closure and be done with it.
Yeah.
Don't sit once.
Yeah, and I would have had a civil. I would still have a civil conversation, sit down with that guy, and just let him, dude. He can call me any name he wants. I would let it happen. You know what I mean? Like you said, yell and scream at me, what the fuck ever. That's fine. You know, I would love to sit down with him again. You know, because, and he blocked me. That was the thing. He was watching me edit because I was editing this shit live on my channel, which I will do with this this isn't a documentary, but this You and Me, I will also do that. Yeah, I will do that. Yeah, live. But he was watching, and I think I had mentioned like, well, he hasn't blocked me yet. When then the next time I looked, he'd blocked me, so I can't reach out to him anymore. And it's like, really, I do think he just wants me to go the fuck away, you know. But I'm not going away. I mean, I'm going to continue to promote this because I put fucking 4 years of work into it. You know, there's some things going on right now where I'm trying to get it to a bigger audience than just YouTube. But when it comes down to it, like, you know, sit down with me. My YouTube channel is still relevant to a degree, and sit down and talk with me, just like what you're doing, you know. But yeah, I mean, because I reached out to you right before, I think it was right before episode 2 came out. I had reached out to you
for the documentary.
For the documentary, yeah. Like when I was reaching out to you, I guess because you had made some comments on something, and you were like, I don't really know about this dude. And I was like, listen, and this was right before episode 2, and I talked with you. You were on a road trip, driving back with your wife. I think because last I knew, you had moved out to Arizona.
Yes, I was. I actually moved to New Hampshire. We were going to. I think we were going on a ghost investigation, actually.
Yeah, I think you're right.
There's expedition. That was most of my time.
Yeah, that sucks. But yeah, we were talking, and I was like, "This is what I'm doing," and I tried to paint a better picture of like, because I remember saying it's like he's faking things, and here's the reason why. And I remember you guys were both, you and your wife both were like that's awesome. You know, I heard it more from her because she was like, "You're doing a service," and it was like, cool. And then the episode came out, and your response was very, like I said, very critical, very much like, and you weren't really rude, I wouldn't say, but it was definitely like, you know, I do not approve of this message, you know, and which is fine. That's absolutely fine. I love talking to people and having their perspective. You know what I mean? And it was just like, well, like once you and I, when I reached out to you again and was like, hey, everything's done, Like, please give it a watch, you know? And it seemed like, you know, like you were like, do I have to? You know, like, do I really have to? Because they're long, and I know that your time is valuable. You know, we're doing other things, and it was like you just weren't really interested. So I was like, all right, well, watch the last 30 minutes of the last episode, and that'll explain why I went about doing this the way I did. You know, because
Yes.
there are all these people who have, you know, all these very close, very personal reasons as to why they're into the paranormal. And when you have somebody like Kent, who I'm that's what I'm saying, who is out there faking things, it damages that. It damages that. Now, right, it doesn't take anything away from your experience personally, right? And you're speaking from a personal point of view there, right? Because you know what you've experienced. If people don't believe it, fuck them, right? But there are so many people out there who don't think that way, who also are they're not in it as deep as you are. They're on the surface level. You know what I mean? And when they're looking for answers and you run into things like this and you think that this is legit, it's not only damaging to a person's psyche and their perspective or perception of what paranormal activity actually is, but it also damages the entire field as a whole. And that, you know, I mean, I know in my lifetime we're not going to find the answers, and I don't know if we'll ever find the answers, no matter what, no matter how many lifetimes go by. I don't know if we'll ever be, because to be honest with you, in what fucking, let's just throw a number at 500 years. People have been talking about ghosts for longer than that, right?
Yeah.
Ghosts, yeah. Like as long as there are people, there are stories of ghosts. So it really goes back thousands of years. But we're no further along in knowing than we were then, you know. So I doubt very seriously that we're ever gonna get to a point where we know for sure. But I see damage, and I'm not even convinced that these things are ghosts of people, of spirits of you know, someone who's passed on. I'm not convinced that that's what it is. Maybe it's something that's alive, that's non-biological, that's just fucking with people, you know? And that's just as good an answer, you know, as it's ghosts. We don't know what it is. Again, kind of on the same concept of what you were saying, you know, we don't know that this spirit in this house is dark. We don't fucking know because we can't see it, right? We don't know what it is. We don't know what we're dealing with. So, I guess it's just there are a myriad of things that it could potentially be, you know. But I'm not convinced it's the spirits of the dead. It could be. I mean, I believe in the Bible, and the Bible talks about ghosts. You know, that's one of my arguments when I run into people who are like serious Bible thumpers, right? Oh, it's demons. It's demons. It's demons. There's no such thing as ghosts. It's like, really? What talks about ghosts in the fucking Bible? Where? Well, the Holy Ghost, for one, right? Also,
Yeah.
it says things about like spiritists. It uses the term spiritists. And when they talk to the dead, right? It's something you're not supposed to do. It doesn't say it's a sin or that it's evil or that you're not allowed to do it. It just says that you shouldn't. So it talks about ghosts in the Bible. So I'm inclined to believe that, you know, there is something there, not just based on what the Bible says, but on my own experiences. I've had some legit experiences that I can't explain. And I've tried to, you know, I'm not the kind of person to just, oh, that's a ghost. You know, that was a ghost. You know, I don't jump to that conclusion. But I guess when I hear these stories, this little girl lost her mother and father in a car accident, and she believes in Cody and Satori. You know who they are?
Yeah, unfortunately.
She believes in them, and then she finds out that they're fake. What does she do? She killed herself.
Oh.
She fucking killed herself. Yeah. This shit happens. And when you're a guy like, oh, I've got a YouTube channel and I'm making fucking, here's an extra 200, $300 a month. Is that extra 200, 300 fucking bucks a month worth that little girl's fucking life? And
No.
now that's just not to say that Kent's responsible for that, right? Kent didn't do that to her, but he's not helping, you know. And I'm not trying to paint him as the bad guy in that scenario, because he's not. He didn't do that, you know. But motherfucker is and who else is to know, you know, about the, you know, who knows what Kent's videos might have done to somebody. I don't know. We don't know. There's no way unless they talk about it, you know. I don't think anything that drastic has happened, but it doesn't help the field in a whole. And people look at us like, oh, you hunt for ghosts? You're a fucking whack job, you know? Now, when you're comfortable with yourself and you know who you are and you know you're not a whack job, you know, sticks and stones, bitch. But, I mean, you know, I mean, we know who we are and we know what we do and we know that we're not fucking crazy, right? But the general consensus is, if you hunt for ghosts, you're a fucking whack job. You know, you get that a lot, and science won't look at it seriously. They won't take anything we do seriously, and I don't blame them. You know, I mean, okay, you have the devices that we use, or the apps that people use. I can't stand apps, but they're, you know, people use apps. The spirit box, you know, like, I'm on the fence with the spirit box. I had something crazy happen with the spirit box at Kent's house. I think it's fucking phenomenal, you know. And there are voices that came through that I'm like, man, that's fucking weird. You know, that's fucking weird. But at the same time, I have to keep my feet grounded and say, well, we don't have any proof that it's ghosts. You know what I mean? It could just be a fucking DJ on the radio that we happen to hear a split second of, and it sounded like it said whatever. You know, we have to be logical. You have to be logical, because the last thing, just like what you were saying, you're driving your teammates nuts because, oh, well, it could be this variable, it could be this variable, it could be this variable. Critical fucking thinking is important. And I feel like there's not enough of that, especially on YouTube. YouTube, it's let's just grab this narrative and run with it. You know what I mean? But you know, it, and I mean, I'm giving you all this and I'm being very long-winded about it right now, and I apologize.
Mhm.
I guess for me, one of the things that I was hoping to get out of this video was the perspective of somebody who is I guess I felt like you wanted to defend Kent to a degree, and I could be wrong. I mean, I don't know. I felt like you wanted to defend him to a degree, but also the perspective of, you know, who cares if it's fake? That was something that you absolutely said to me. I still haven't really gotten an answer on it because we keep trailing off. Why do you feel that way? Why do you feel that way? The who cares if it's fake?
Well, who cares if it's fake? Because what does he get out of it?
Well, but okay, but I don't understand that answer. Who cares if it's fake? Okay, because what does he get out of it? I don't understand what you mean by that.
Well, it's like, so let's say I film a complete bullshit video.
Mm-hmm.
I throw it up on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
You know, funny, here's a video. Someone watching it goes, oh my God, that's the coolest shit I've ever seen. Okay. So what do I get of you thinking it was cool? You had an experience with it, you watched it, you laughed, you had a great time for 30 seconds, maybe you replayed it, turned into a minute. Great.
Mm.
Times that, let's say 3,000.
Okay.
Okay, I still don't get anything out of it except a little number thing that says has been viewed this many times.
Right.
I mean, I have my own YouTube page, and I don't even I don't even check up on it because I don't see a point.
Mm.
You know, if someone wants to sit there and say, "Oh, you faked that," okay, think what you want. I don't really care what you think.
Mm.
My perspective is I did something, I brought a camera, I recorded what I did, and I put it up for anybody that really gave two shits on if they saw it. Do I get anything out of it? No. But, it's there. I
Okay.
mean, take it however ideology you want to use towards it. Tell me I'm a religious, Satanistic person. I mean, I'm sitting here in a demon jacket right now.
Uh-huh.
With Zach douchebaggins on my on
Right.
my, and it's like, well, what do I get out of it by wearing douchebaggins shirt? Well, he got $15 off me. um, but it's like, whatever, you know, you know, it, you can fake. My biggest issue with the whole Kent faking it is popularity went like this, but now it's going like this. So either he's really bad at making videos, or whatever happened right here was so significant that the quality just dropped. So if he was out to make money, you'd think it would just go like this and go like this and like this and make money, money, money and all that. But it went like this and then it started going down like this. Because, like I said, I love his videos and all, but the thing that drove me nuts and the thing that really kind of turned me off from it was EVP, 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 EVP. Okay, I get it. You've got a story. There's some sort of narrative from the spirits. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here for you to sit there and play EVPs. I can go get that myself. I want to see some other things. I want to see an orb. Well, I don't want to see an orb. I hate orbs. I want to see like something happen.
Yeah.
Shadow Dude. I tried talking to him about it. He wouldn't touch it too much because, again, his religious beliefs and all that. He doesn't like talking about demons, which, whatever, that's your belief. I'm not going to knock it. But at the same time, if you're a paranormal investigator, you got to think open-mindedly. You're going to run into things that you're not going to like. Do you get to sit there and ignore it? No, it's still going to be there whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't want to investigate it, you don't want to investigate it, that's on you. But that doesn't make it go away. That doesn't make it magically disappear. It's still there, which is why when he was talking about going to the basement and all the dangers of it, I was like, dude, do not go in there without backup. I've been there, done that. It's not fun. It can get really scary and potentially dangerous when you're messing with stuff like that. And if you're not ready for it, it will bite.
Right.
And he didn't really, he wasn't keen on the idea. Again, religious beliefs. But it's like, whether you like it or not, it's there. Make sure if you're going to sit there and say, well, I've got these spirits and one dark one, well, the dark one's not going to go away. You got to deal with it. And he wouldn't deal with it. He just was like, nope, I'm done. I'm like, dude, that's not how it works.
Yeah. So, okay.
I also have a name for you. What I think Rachel is what the Buddhists would call a tulpa. I was saying it wrong.
Right. Okay. Yeah, just something that was manifested by the belief that it exists.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had to do a quick Google search, but yeah, it's tulpa. I'm an idiot.
It's all right. It's all right. It's a word I'm not familiar with, but I'm familiar with what it is. So you're saying it's like, okay, so what's in it for Kent to fake, right? But I guess I'm trying to draw the parallel between, because like the who cares if it's fake? Okay, he's faking things. What's he get out of it? You're hung up on the what's he get out of it thing. You can't figure out what he got out of it. I think that you're focusing on the wrong part there, right? Like, so you're right. His popularity soared, right? Like there was not a top 5 channel on YouTube for all of 2019, 2020 that he wasn't on. At least once, if not twice, he was on there. But that's the thing. What he got out of it was attention, right? And then more people coming over to his channel and subscribing, and then he started gaining popularity through that. That's what he was gaining out of it. Now, that's trailed off, and that's what happens, right? There we have these moments of fads, right? Fucking Andrew Tate, good example, right? You know who Andrew Tate is?
No.
Okay, well, Andrew Tate was like, everyone was talking about him. He was all over TikTok. Billy Carson,
Was that the beautiful jail dude?
beautiful jail. I know he ended up in jail. A lot of women hated him because he was a man speaking for men. That was, you know what I mean? Same reason why they hate Jordan Peterson, right? Jordan Peterson, well, although Jordan Peterson is still relevant because Jordan Peterson actually has valuable input. Billy Carson. Billy Carson's another one. He's just recently fucking crashed and burned because of how he responded to something that happened to him. Billy Carson was a guy that's out there saying things that we came from Mars, and that there was this guy Thoth who was probably Jesus, and the Emerald Tablets, which don't fucking exist. They never did. It was made up by this guy. But anyway, you have these moments where these people are very, very popular to talk about. They're very hot at the time, and then they go away. They got their 15 minutes of fame, as it were. And yeah, that's what he was after. But he wanted to make it a sustainable life. You know, that was really what he wanted. He was always telling people, we've got people from Netflix coming out here to do a show on me. I've got people that worked on HBO shows. I got people that worked on Disney shows. I got this and this and this. He was always trying to get it to where it would get to that next level. He wanted the show on the Discovery Channel. And yes, to answer your question that you asked a while back, Discovery still plays paranormal stuff, paranormal shit, just paranormal in general. Most of it, like Destination Truth or that's actually called Project Truth now. But there's others. The fucking Ghost Mine show, or there's all these different shows. That's what they do on Discovery. Yeah, Discovery Channel is like the one where, like, that's where I think even Ghost Adventures is like mostly played on Discovery, if I remember right. I could be wrong about that, but anyway. But the thing that I'm hung up on, and I'm saying it again, was the who cares. That was the thing. So what is that perspective? Like, what, and I'm not trying to put you out to be a bad guy. I just want you to tell me that, like, what that perspective, where does that come from?
Well, you're old enough to remember. You remember Marilyn Manson?
Oh, yeah.
He was blamed for Columbine.
Yeah, man.
You're telling me this guy put out music to try and shoot up a high school?
I thought the same thing about Ozzy Osbourne. I'm glad you're bringing this up. Yeah, right? Because Ozzy Osbourne, Suicide Solution, right? When that song came out, this guy killed himself. And he had the family says that he had an Ozzy Osbourne record on the record table whenever they found him and shit. And so they sued Ozzy over it. And they lost. What? They lost. I'm not saying anybody deserves to be sued. But anyway, go ahead. Go ahead with your thought.
It's just, you make content. And I think you just make content to make content. Like, if you can't tell your audience, perceive it like this.
Sure.
Like, and you need to believe this. It's the truth.
Right.
And you expect people to be like, oh, yeah, it's the truth. And then you come to find out you've been lying about it. Oh, like, how is that your fault?
That's fair.
However, there is a lot of fake ghost paranormal crap out there, and I don't really understand why. Like, you don't gain anything out of it. Like, what are you trying to gain from making a fake ghost video? A few laughs, haha, very funny. Moving on, and they're really short clips too, which is the most annoying part. Unless you're like Sam and Corey, for some reason I'll never understand. A little bit below my generation is absolutely insanely in love with Sam and Corey. If you Google Sam and Corey and you look into them, they're all actually blacklisted by a lot of places because they're not what they appear on camera.
Right.
And it's like, why? First off, if you're going to be rude off camera and be not rude on camera, you're already faking who you are. Mm-hmm. So you're not being true to yourself. if you're putting fake content out there, why? You're not helping anybody. I don't get it. If you're at the Sam and Corey level, you're probably making, I don't know, $700-800, which, you know, good for you.
They
But
make a lot more than that.
oh, Sam and Corey probably. That was just a rough estimate.
Yeah.
But it's like, why? Why? You don't get anything out of it. And if you're just starting, you're definitely not going to get anything out of it. But when it comes to Kent's situation, again, the quality was like this, and then the quality went like this. Like, if he was out to make money, wouldn't the quality keep going up? When does evidence get more and more intense, more and more cool, bring in the viewers? But
it did. It did do that. It did do that.
Then why stop?
It ran its course. You know? His subscriber count stopped. His subscriber count has plateaued, right? It went up to this much and then it just plateaued. And yeah, like so do better, create something else. But he was doing that, you know, like it started off with like these little voices and these things, and then the shadow figure, and then ghost shadow dude, and then the guy going out the fucking window, and you know, this the one where there's like it looks like an old man standing next to the window, and then it just goes out the window. Do you remember that one?
Yep.
It wasn't shadowy at all. It actually looked like a man. And I remember seeing that and being like, that's fucking phenomenal. And then the more I slowed it down, the more I'm like, oh, there's the cut right there. You know, like what you were saying, blurs and all this stuff. Kent does know how to use his program. He does. And I think part of the idea of keeping it looking like shit is to keep that persona of, oh, he's just a helpless old man who doesn't know shit about anything. You know, I do believe he's that smart, bro. I do. You know, I mean, and that's fine if you don't, but you know, that's how I see it. You know, it just seems like he hides behind a lot of these things. He hides on the ignorance of others, you know. Well,
what about
you know, the main thing about like what you said, that because I thought about this, I'm glad you brought it up. And you're right. It's not his fault if someone shoots themselves in the head over a fake video or kills himself or what the fuck ever. It's really not his fault if that happens. And I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying that that's his fault.
Right.
What I'm saying is that fake evidence in general is bad. Now, he was the one that happened to catch the brunt end or the blunt end of it from my end. The expose of it all, you know. So, but I don't believe that it's his fault that someone has hurt themselves. Okay, I that's fair. You know, that's fair. I guess for me, it's just in general when you have these videos and they're fake, that it completely damages the credibility of the field at all. You and I both know. We know that paranormal evidence or paranormal happenings exists, right? We know it because we've experienced it, right? But not everybody does. And then there are people out there who might be looking for answers and they find the wrong people, like Sam and Colby, or Cody and Satori, or Omar Gosh, or Mindseed, and they believe, and this is all, it's misrepresented. It's not real. A lot of that shit just does not happen the way that they fucking portray it. And you have these people who have never experienced anything and they believe in it, right? Which is an interesting concept to me. That there are people who haven't experienced anything yet they believe it based on these videos that they're watching, and then it goes deeper than that. I mean, even the stuff that's on TV, you know, Ghost Adventures. We all know that Zach Bagans fucking like sensationalizes things. I believe it all starts from somewhere legitimate, you know. I think they all start with good intentions, and then they got to keep the ratings up, or they got to keep those views coming. They got to keep that going, you know. And so to get back to the point of why didn't he get better and better. It's like, well, he did. While the quality of his videos overall and the format remained just as shitty as the fucking first video, the activity became more and more intense. You know, it did become more and more intense. So yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, my whole perspective on it, you know, like or my perspective, my position, I should say. And I like that, because when I like that we're having this conversation, because when we talked before and you were like, well, who the fuck cares? Who the fuck cares? I was like, damn, dude, you don't have a soul in your body, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I
But
see that now.
yeah, yeah, you know what I mean? And I knew, I'm like, that can't be the way this guy really is. Because every time we have spoken, dude, even when we disagree, you've always been respectful. You've always been respectful, you know? And I can tell you're a good dude, you know? And I know you're out even still. We find answers, but those answers often end up with leading into more questions. And you're still searching for those answers. You're still searching, you know? And that's, I guess, what kind of baffles me here, because I think you're in it for the right reasons. I think you're well, what are the right reasons? I mean, anything that doesn't involve becoming famous. Okay.
You know, it's really you say that. So under Haunted Conversations Facebook page, I'm labeled as a scientist, right?
Okay.
The reason I got into paranormal, well, the reason I continue to get into the paranormal and actually go out and investigate and stuff. So let's say you have a poltergeist, you know, something that can move things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a poltergeist, a spirit, is a person who had died and is now haunting a location and moving stuff, right?
Well, I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, in theory. So you're telling me when we die and we become a spirit, we have the ability to physically move things in the living world.
Hmm.
But we have to die to get there? So you're telling me when I die I can do that. Well, why can't I do that in the living? If I'm me but dead, I can still manipulate things without touching it? How does that work?
That's a good question.
My favorite question I ask people is, when we die, or before we die, our brains are constantly shooting signals. The reason I'm able to move my hand is because my brain sent a signal to my hand and my muscle to move it, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
So what's that signal? Well, the answer I always get is, oh, it's neurons. Okay, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
What is telling my body to do this?
Well, brain sending
I don't know.
electrical currents.
Yeah, but
brain,
what's the?
I get what you're asking. Yeah, why is it that we can't manipulate things without touching them while we're alive? Or, you know, is that what you're going with?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
And then we get into psychic phenomenon and all that, and it's a rabbit hole you don't want to go down.
Yeah.
But it's like that kind of question really just makes me wonder, like, why can't I make my mod go from this hand to this hand without touching it? I have to actually go like this.
Yeah.
But a spirit can just be like,
Yeah.
like that doesn't make sense. It physically on any quantum level shouldn't be possible, and yet it is.
Right.
Which is why I label myself a scientist.
Yeah.
Or I think the problem is parapsychologist.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, but what astounds me though, I guess, is you're out there looking and stuff, and yet it's not to say that fake evidence doesn't annoy you, because it does.
It does a great.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, when I've and look, man, like you know where I'm at on the fence here. I'm not even on a fence anymore, really. It's like, look, like these videos that I've felt like I recreated. I mean, yeah, there's differences, and I think one of the main differences is I think Kent does an extra step in his process where he films it all, he makes the video, and then he plays the video on on his screen, and then he records that with his camera, with his phone, and then that's what gets uploaded. That's what gets uploaded. Now he could take that and then sync the audio from the actual video to it, which would be easy. There's no, it would be, it's basically effortless to be able to do that. And so then you've got the good quality audio with the shitty quality camera video, and that's where the extra artifacts come from, like the extra like weird wispiness that happens and stuff. And it does work. I've done it. I didn't explain that in the documentary because I was like, I'd already basically gotten my point across. But I guess to me, man, those videos are fake, whether it was too slow or not, and I mean, I could argue on that further, but for somebody who's looking for answers and is annoyed with fake stuff, do you not feel that it's possible that because you like Kent so much, or that you like Kent at all, that can kind of limit your perspective or have an influence on your perspective about the situation?
This is going to sound incredibly rude and disrespectful, but think of it from that perspective. Fuck Kent at that point. I don't give a shit. It could be John Wick for all I care. Oh, no, that'd be actually kind of cool. It could be Joe Schmo from the gas station who works with his wife for all I care. I don't. When it comes to a place, or especially an investigation, if I don't have an experience that I can look back on and go, whoa, shit happened, I experienced it, I won't label it paranormal. But yeah, whether it's Kent, my own mother, that doesn't really do much for me. I don't care who is hosting. It's never been a thing for me.
Sure.
When it comes to investigating, it's all about the investigation. If the investigation went really well, then yeah, if I can say it's haunted, it's haunted. But whoever hosts it, that don't matter at all to me. And
Sure.
don't get me wrong, Kent's a great guy, and all good on him for being who he is. But him being him is irrelevant to me.
Yeah, and it is to me too, and I'm glad that you brought that up too, because it doesn't matter who's hoaxing. You know what I mean? Like I said, he got the blunt end of the stick of it from me because it just happened to be the guy that I went to their house. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how that worked out. It wasn't like I was like, oh, fuck Kent Burris. Like, I had no idea. You know what I mean? I wanted it all to be real. But yes, you're right. It doesn't matter who's hoaxing. So the damage is being done, is what I'm saying. It doesn't matter who the fuck does it. The damage is there. And when you have these people who are looking for answers, they're not getting answers that are surrounded with truth, and so then that affects the way that and this happens a lot, where a great example of this, and I'm going to name drop, is Central Maine ghost hunters. Okay, they see people on TV, yeah. Right? Oh, I can do that. And then they watch what these guys do on TV, and oh, now I'm a paranormal investigator. I got a fucking spirit box. I've got an EMF meter, and I'm gonna go tell people that they've got ghosts in their house. You know what I mean? Like, there's so much more to it than that. If you don't know how those tools really work, like an EMF meter, if you don't really know what it's for or what it really does, it's just a fucking it's just equipment in a room. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you're not really getting any answers. So what's happening is you have these people who see stuff and then they mimic it, and then they think, oh, wow, this is, that's legit. This must be how it's really done. And it's all just a bunch of fucking horse shit. And then you get all these false positives, right? And so that's where the damage comes in for me. And that's, I guess you only have control over yourself, right? So when you go to investigate, you know what not to do.
Unless you're me.
Well, I mean, to be fair, none of us know what the fuck we're doing. There are some people who have some really, really interesting equipment that hasn't been, like my friend Matt Benton. He's got this thing that's like, it detects where EMF is coming from specifically. and it does it with tone. Yeah, and it's fucking neat. Yeah, it's like, and it's an expansive piece of equipment.
Milligauss.
Yeah, but it does it like the closer you get, the louder the hum gets, so you can pinpoint exactly where it is. There's also something else I'm not gonna say it because he's asked me not to say what it is, but it's another piece of equipment that is based in science. It's a scientific. It measures something specifically, and he's gonna mess with that and see what kind of results he gets out of it. And
the Estus method. Do you know how that came about?
Yeah, so there are these guys, Carl Pfeiffer and Connor something or other. They worked over at the Stanley Hotel, which is on Mount Estes, and
Estes Park.
Yeah, and so I don't know who did it first. I think it was somebody else that showed them this method, and then they started using it. I learned about it from Hellier, which was actually Hellier had just come out.
Hellier was amazing.
Yeah, it was really good. It's really good. It's a good documentary. But I watched that, and that was because it was 2019 is when Hellier came out, and I was like, oh man, like I'd love to do this Estes method thing. And so when we went to Kent's house and did the Estes method, nobody was doing that yet. It wasn't all over YouTube like it is now, And Kenny, I talked to this guy Kenny Biddle, who he works for the Skeptical Inquirer magazine, and he also works for the Center for Inquiry. His job is to go and investigate these things, and that's his job. So he hunts for ghosts, but his perspective is different now. So he used to be all in, and then he had something happen that convinced him that, well, maybe none of this is real at all. Yet he doesn't sit on the side of the fence that none of it's real. It's these people are experiencing something. What are they experiencing? His opinion of the Estes method is, these are two separate events. It doesn't matter what the fuck questions you're asking. You have radio stations coming through a radio, and you have someone asking questions. There is no connection. The only thing that people start making the connection with is when you start saying relevant words. And I've watched so many people do Estes methods where there's no fucking relevant words happening, and they completely ignore those. They only stick to the ones that are relevant,
It's an ITS device.
What's that?
It's ITS.
Yeah. I mean,
stupid.
Go ahead. It's what?
It's a stupid term. It's a vague way of saying it could work.
Right.
It could not work.
Oh, is it? It's ITC, isn't it?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. They say that on the spirit boxes and on the Ovulus and shit like that. Back when they were making Ovulus, like actual standalone Ovulus hardware and shit, those would say that. But yeah, I mean, I guess to get back to the topic at hand, I admire what you're saying because I get it. It's like where you're at and stuff, and you know what you know. But for me, it's the in general of like, as long as people are faking these things, and people. I'm sorry.
Your mic is cracking up.
Oh, is it? Hold on a second. It does that sometimes. Is that better?
I can't hear you at all now.
Check. Checkity, check. No?
You're muted.
Check. Can you hear me now?
No, I can't hear you at all either. Gotta love audio issues.
Now you can hear me.
Oh, wow. I can hear you now.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, my interface every now and then does this weird thing where it starts crackling, and I don't know what's causing that. I bought this thing. I actually bought this specifically to go to Kent's house and do interviews with. That's what I bought this for. It's a little interface that I still use today. It's really good. But to get back to what we were saying is, you're a paranormal investigator, and you know what you know, and you have these guys who fake things, and it's like, well, it doesn't affect me one way or the other, right? It doesn't really affect you personally, you know. And I can understand that, but I and you know, I mean, you're I think a rare breed in that sense where it's like, you know, fuck them. People fake things. There's nothing I can do. You can't control it, you know. But I think bringing awareness to it is where I'm at. You know what I mean? Making it aware to these people who are looking for answers. And you know, once somebody is all in on something, it's very hard to get them out of it. You know, like once they believe what they believe, it's really hard to change their minds. And it sucks because I know all those names that I listed. Oh my gosh, Mindseed, Patty Adams, fucking Phase Rug. They all fake shit. They all fake shit.
I remember that.
Yeah. They all
Well,
fake shit.
came out and said it was all for, or it all started on as a college project to make horror movies.
You?
No,
Who was that?
Mindseed.
What? They said that?
Yeah, it was a big thing. The lead guy, the big buff dude.
Yeah, Casey.
Yeah, he came out and was like, "Look, guys, I'm sorry. Apparently, I have to disclose this. This has all just been a project for. Well, it started off as a project for making horror movies, and we just kept going."
Really?
Yeah, I clicked on subscribe so quick.
Huh.
There's really stuff too. I like their stuff a lot, even if it
Well,
is
yeah,
fake.
because it was,
Cool.
they were fucking great. They were great at it. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, right? That's one of those. I'm glad that you said that because I need to find that video. I need to find that video. But I have broken down fake into different categories. So fake doesn't always mean that people are trying to fake things, that they're trying to hoax stuff. Fake comes down. So you have those people who are outright hoaxing. Then you have people who are fooling themselves, right? Thinking that they've captured something and they've just made a mistake. You know, they made a mistake. It wasn't anything paranormal. It was just a mistake. Then you have people who are trying to get better at creating effects. They're in it. They're movie makers, and they're trying to see if it's believable or not. You know, that's another category. It's people who are just getting better at their craft of making film. So that's an interesting thing that Casey came out and said that. I would think that because the community that I hang out with, I'm surprised that it slipped past them. And if you could find that, please send it to me because I'd like to be able to see it for myself.
Mindseed was cool back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, they
Video came out where they said that it was all fake. I was like, really? Are you really?
Huh.
Like those videos were terrifying.
Yeah.
See, when it comes to like fake stuff, the way I look at it is, okay, I've experienced this, and this. Is it anything like that whatsoever? Yes, no, could be. Yes, no, could be. When it comes to Kent, most of the stuff that he's experienced, except for one piece of evidence I've never, ever seen to this day, and that was the shadow orb.
A shadow orb.
Yeah.
And this is something that that he put up on his channel.
If you watch my episode, we're down in the basement, and it's Kent in front of me. Camera's behind me, above. I think it's above my right shoulder, and he's got the light on. We're in the basement. He's sitting down. I think we're doing the spirit box, and there's an orb that comes down, and it stops, or he pauses it right about his chest, and I don't really know how he could see it. I mean, at first I thought it was a bug, but then I thought about it and I was like, there was no bugs. This was like the winter time, so there was no bugs. But it comes down and it went like this, and then it just disappeared. It was essentially an orb. At least I thought it was an orb until a little bit, like a few seconds in the video, he actually zooms in and he's like, it's an orb, but it's got a shadow tint to it. And I remember to this day, he messaged me about it and he was like, have you ever heard of a shadow orb? I'm like, no. What is that? He's like, it's an orb that looks like a shadow. I'm like, you mean this orb has a form? He goes, no, it's just an orb with a dark tint. And I've never seen that before.
Right.
And that's the only thing that I can honestly say I'm still on the fence about. Because
What do you mean?
like,
What do you mean?
like I'm not sure if I fully believe it because I haven't seen it. But at the same time, you know, it's paranormal. Who can say, you know, this is that and that is that? Like, you gotta have to take everything you see with a grain of salt, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't until Kent brought up that what if when we die, time is irrelevant?
Oh, sure.
And I
Yeah.
thought about it, I was like, okay, well, maybe that's why they move so fast, or why you'll get a voice that's right in front of you, but the apparition is like down the hall. How does that make sense when you heard the voice right next to you, but the apparition's all the way down there?
Right.
Unless time's irrelevant on that side, because why would time be relevant when you're dead?
Right. Right. Yeah. No, time doesn't. Time. Yeah, time is a thing here in the physical world. Most likely, it doesn't exist over there either. Yeah. I mean, time. But
I mean, then it's witching hour. What
yeah, I
happens
don't.
during savings
I,
time?
I think that's all a bunch of bullshit. You know,
I mean,
like,
you just go,
oh,
oh wait,
three. Go
huh?
ahead. Oh, I was just like, yeah, like, oh, it's 3 o'clock. Time for us to go fuck shit up now. It's like ghosts don't fucking, you know what I mean? Like,
Then you got daylight savings time. Oh, they put the clocks back an hour. Hold on, guys, we got to wait one. How does that make sense? Not to mention, not all states within the United States alone do daylight savings time. Arizona doesn't have a daylight savings time.
Right.
So it's like you're telling me around 3 a.m. all this stuff is supposed to kick up.
Uh-huh.
But what about all the other places that don't do it?
Right.
Like, oh, we're gonna go to vacation in Arizona. Well, they don't have daylight savings time. We can do it at 3.
Yeah, right.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts.
Yeah, that's smart. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. But so this in your video there's like this shadow orb thing. Now, and you're not convinced that that was actually something legit?
It's not that I don't think it was legit. I just don't know what it is.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
And I can't say it's fake. I can't say it's not fake. I don't know what it is.
Right.
But I've never seen anything like that. Everything else in his videos I've seen at one point or another,
Mm-hmm.
including haunted clothes.
Haunted clothes?
Oh yeah, that is the weirdest shit you'll ever see.
Huh.
And it looks just like his like a shirt. Woo!
Huh.
I know it's freaking weird, but when you see it, you're like, oh, that's what that looks like. Okay.
That's interesting. Yeah, and again, it's like I do feel like he has stuff going on there. So, you know, when you have these anomalies and stuff, you know, it's really interesting. And but that's the thing that sucks to me though, dude. It's like he has these things that I feel like are legit, you know, but then I find these other things. It's like, well, this isn't legit. There's no way this is legit, and here's why. And then, well, then now all of his fucking evidence comes into question, doesn't it?
Have you ever had a paranormal experience?
Oh yeah.
I mean, aside from Ken.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you seen like full apparitions?
So yeah, when I was a little boy. I saw this man standing out the window, and he was looking up at me, and I was like, "Mama, there's a man outside," and I'm talking, I was like really little, like really really little. I was, "Mama, there's a man outside," and she went and looked, and she's like, "There's no one there," and I was like, I remember like looking around, like, you know, looking through the other windows of the house to see if, you know, like he was somewhere in the yard. It wasn't until I was in my 20s later that memory popped in my head that I realized that that's what that was. But yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
I've had things happen. Yes.
it's like stuff like that where you're like, okay, so you know what an apparition is, you know what to look for,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. The other great example I tell people is, would you ever touch a Ouija board?
Oh yeah, I've got one.
Oh, you do have one?
Yeah, it's right over there. Made of
Does it
wood.
work? Oh, fuck you! You got a
So
wooden one.
I I've never gotten it to work. The closest that I came, so to me the idea of you have to have more than one person in order for it to work is also horseshit. If it works, it should work alone. You should be able to do it by yourself. And so I had my fingers on the planchette, and what I had done was I'd put myself into a meditative state. And
Ooh.
and when I did that, I felt electricity on my arms, dude. I felt static, like not goosebumps. Like it felt like when you put a balloon over your fucking arm and it pulls the hairs up. That happened, and I was like, okay, I'm good, and I stopped.
That's what stopped you?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, I'm good. I'm good. I mean, and I could have been freaking myself out. But I was all alone. I mean, I wasn't no cameras, nothing. I was just all alone. I was, legit doing this, and that happened, and I was like, okay, like, I don't know that I want to go any further with this. It
That's
scared me.
That's
What's
when
that?
you know it's working.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people are like, well, I'll never touch a Ouija board. Well, why? Because all they do is open up portals to the demonic world. Well, how do you know?
Right.
Oh, I saw it on YouTube. Okay. I can 5 fake videos where this person saw God. Are you gonna tell me God's real next? I'm like, you can't show me proof of God.
Right.
And then they're like, well, I'm not touching it. Okay, so you won't touch it because your beliefs tell you not to. So you're gonna tell me I'm wrong, but I'm gonna tell you you're wrong. We're gonna argue back and forth, and none of us are gonna be right because we have different perspectives.
Right.
So where are we on that point? Well, I just think they're evil. Okay, and I'm gonna tell you they're not.
Right.
Who's
Well, now are these same people? Do they use spirit boxes?
that? I don't know.
Well, ask them that next. Ask them that next, right? Would you ever use a Ouija board? No. Okay, well, would you use a spirit box? Yes. What's the fucking difference? You're still contacting the dead.
Well, yeah, a lot of people don't like the contact though, the physical contact.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, that's how you get attachments. You don't even know what an attachment is.
Right. We don't even know if that's real. Well, I mean, we don't know what the fuck. No one knows. There is no legitimate scientific evidence or scientific anything that shows us that this shit is real. It's all what they call pseudoscience. But I know it exists. You know it exists, but not everybody does. You know what I mean? So we don't have those. We don't have scientists telling us it's real, and that's the part. Like, I don't believe in psychics, man. I don't believe psychics are real. Now, that's not to say I'm not open to the idea. Like, if you're a psychic and you're claiming you're a psychic, show me. Please show me, because I want to believe that that's real. I do. I want to believe that that's real. But as it is right now, there is nothing scientific that shows that that's real, and I've never had any experience with something that could convince me otherwise. But I'm open to it, And I saw there was something recently where there was this girl who claimed she's a psychic, and she was watching a video, and the guy was saying psychics aren't fucking real, and she's like, well, that's just an opinion. And it's like, no, bitch, there is no fucking fact. There is nothing scientific that proves that psychics are fucking real. Your opinion is that they are real. Science says they aren't. Now, if you are a legit psychic, because she says that she is, that's awesome. And I know you don't have to prove anything. She didn't have to prove anything to me, but I would love to fucking experience that. And I'm open to that. I'm open to that.
Fun.
Yeah, it'd be fucking, it's because I don't have all the answers, and I don't claim to, but I do know what I know. And I also know what I don't know. You know what I mean?
It's funny you bring that up, actually. I tried joining this paranormal group, and they're like, have you ever talked to ghosts? I'm like, yeah, all the time. Don't you? They're like, oh, you're a medium. I'm like, no. They're like,
Right.
but you're dead. I'm like, so you're a medium. I'm like, no, I'm not a medium. Why do you know? They're like, but you talk to the dead without any tools, right? I'm like, I've done it, yeah. I find it actually to be really easy.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, or medium. I'm like, stop calling me that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, labels. That's another thing. We have these labels, you know. And the label itself, paranormal investigator. What fucking criteria do you have to go through to get that label?
That is a great question. I have no idea.
Nothing. You just say I'm a paranormal investigator. That's what they do. You know what I mean? You just all of a sudden that's what you do. You've given yourself this title, you know? And I mean, if I think ghost hunters and paranormal investigators, since we're talking about labels, they're not the same fucking thing. Ghost hunters are the guys that are out there like Sam and Colby, you know, or Omar Gosh.
Or for the story.
Right. Yeah. Whereas paranormal investigators are actually investigating, you know, they're investigating the claims. They're investigating all these things. That's another reason why I did what I did, was because I labeled myself an investigator. Well, fucking investigate. You know what I mean? Yes, I investigated the house, but I also investigated Kent. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like if I'm going to carry the title of investigator right now, then I need to do that. I need to investigate. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. It just the whole concept of everything, and you know, I made the documentary, and I didn't want it to be biased at all. I just wanted to share with people what I found, you know, and then it became like this thing where,
Do you know what you left out?
What's that?
What if he isn't faking it?
Well, if okay,
that was my big issue with it. Is what if he's not?
Okay. Well, and there are some things that I don't think he is faking, you know. But the problem is I feel like I found things that are smoking guns that say that he is. And so what happens is, let's say he didn't fake all this other stuff. This other stuff isn't fake, but these smoking guns are here. All the stuff that he didn't fake is also now under major scrutiny because of these smoking guns. You know what I mean?
Welcome to Paranormal Investigating. We've been under investigation since we started investigating, and it sucks.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if he's not faking it, which the fact that I'm humoring that, I mean, like I said, I don't think everything is fake I don't. But the thing with David, where he's out there, got him digging holes, fucking looking for his dead fucking cousin, that is bullshit.
That was demented. I'm sorry, Ken. Come on, dude. You got to be sensitive to things, and I'm not talking like in a spiritual sense. I'm talking like just morally. Don't do. So I had a friend who passed away. God rest his soul. And through the grapevine, his mother found out I investigate paranormal. And my dumb ass, she asked me for the link. So I sent her the link. You know what the first video she pulled up was? Me investigating her dead son.
Oh, fuck.
I went, oh shit. She just saw the first video. And of course, the first video that I had was from like a few days before I sent her the link, was me investigating her dead son. I was like, I'm an asshole. But what got her, because she was kind of on the fence about it too, but I got an EVP. I said, is there anything you want to say? Speak into the mic. It's all yours, brother. And he kind of just went, all right. And she's like, that was him. I'm like, look, I don't know what to tell you. I kind of wish that wasn't the first video you saw, because how insensitive of me to do that to you. But that's what I got.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I'm really glad that was the first video that I saw. I'm like, well, I hope it brought you some peace, but at the same time, it's like,
whoops,
I would be sensitive.
Well, you didn't do it on purpose. You know what I mean?
No.
You didn't say to her, hey, let's go fucking look, let's go try to find your dead son. You know what I mean? You didn't do that, you know.
I've been offered money before. I will never take money for, and unless it's gas money, for paranormal investigations. I went. It's actually the mirror guy when you called me. We drove 5 hours. He was like, we got nothing, and he's like, I don't want these mirrors. You take them. And these are like 1958 copper plated mirrors. I still have them in a storage locker. And I don't know what to fucking do with them. But he's like, here's $200. I'm like, I'm not taking your money. He goes, you drove 5 hours and you're taking these things out of my house. Please take this money as gas money and do with it what you need. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. It's the only time I've ever accepted money, and it was only because we drove 5 hours out to this damn place. And I mean, granted, the living accommodation sucked. We did not sleep at all because we were essentially sleeping on the ground. But it's like taking money for investigating and cleansing. You don't know if it's going to work. Right. I mean, do what you saw on YouTube or do what the Bible tells you or whatever. That shit doesn't always work 100%. Most of the time, the stuff comes back. But to make money off of it just seems disrespectful,
Yeah.
And the thought of it just leaves a really sour taste in my mouth, which is why I won't accept money.
Yeah.
But I've done cleansings, I've done investigations, I've accidentally told loved ones that their dead loved ones said this, do with it what you will. But it feels wrong to me. Yeah. I can't make money off of the dead.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. Again, another, like, the more you're telling me, it's like the more I'm like, yeah, this dude's on the level, like you, and that's the thing, dude. Like, people like you, when it comes to, or like us, we're just looking for answers. We're not looking for fame. We're not doing it for money, right? And I said that in the final stretch there, right? And there are lots of people out there who are in paranormal groups that aren't on YouTube, aren't on TV. They're not even looking for any of that. They're just out there doing a service. They're out there looking for answers. They're out there investigating, helping families. When you do residentials, man, that's a whole world of shit that I don't want anything to do with, to be honest with you, because you don't know whose house you're walking into, But I guess in the big picture, it bothers me that there's all this misrepresentation, and then to use and exploit somebody for gain, for financial gain, for popularity, for shit like that. And there are people who do that all the fucking time. And even the stuff where it's like, oh, I'm in this abandoned house and there's this, and it's, like what Omar Gosh does. Omar Gosh isn't out there fucking with families. He's not, I'll give him that. He's making entertaining content. And he's a likable dude, man. I mean, he's got that charisma. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I get that, but like, again, there are people that are coming to you looking for answers, and you're blatantly lying to them. You don't give a fuck about your fans at all. And these people adore and will give him money and will fucking buy his merch and fucking, like, for what? You're being lied to. You're being lied to. And the moment that I tell you, hey, and I'm trying to help, hey, this isn't the guy if you're looking for answers. Well, now I'm a fucking asshole because I'm shattering your paradigm, because I'm making you question things. And maybe you lost your grandmother. Maybe you lost your dad, your uncle, fucking your sister. your best friend, and you're looking for answers because you want to know that they're okay. And you've got people like this who are misrepresenting what it is that you do. You personally, Kyler Roach. They're misrepresenting what you do. And then, you know, maybe you haven't had to deal with any kind of blowback from other people faking things. Maybe, I don't know. But you don't deserve it if you do get something like that. And your life isn't over. So maybe there's always time for everything. Something might happen some point, you know. It bothers me because I feel like people like you are legit good people. You're good. You have a good heart. And then you have these other people who are shitting all over that. Maybe you haven't thought of it that way, you know? And in the end, okay, when you go to bed at night, you can sleep at night knowing that you are who you are and you're okay. And, you know, your life is going the way it's going and you're okay. And that's fine. But, motherfucker, huh?
Are you okay?
No. Bothers me, dude.
It hurts. Tell. Do you want a hug?
I do. Thank you, dude. Thank you. No, it bothers me, bro. It bothers me. And I hate to see people being misled and people's feelings and emotions being exploited like that, you know? And I guess that your voice ringing out in my head, who cares if it's fake? I'm so glad that we get to have this conversation right now because you can see that I'm emotionally fucking compromised right now, you know?
Yeah.
You can see that it's not about hurting someone to me. It's protecting, you know? And I know you're not asking me for that protection, you know, and these other investigators, they're not asking for that. But someone's got to try, you know? And the community that I hang out with, they get a bad rep, like a bad rap, right? Oh, well, you're a debunker, so therefore you're toxic, or you don't believe in it. You don't believe in this. And it's like, dude, I'm finding that that's not true at all. That these debunkers, a lot of them do believe. They do believe, you know? And it bothers me, man. It just bothers me that we have this we have this stigma over us. And I use the term us because, and I don't think there should be a divide between debunker and investigator. I think they should be the same thing. You should be debunking.
If you're a good investigator, you're debunking.
Yes, you should be. And there's none of that. Like the way that YouTube is and the way even fucking the shows on TV are anymore. I mean, there was a good one that was called Fact or Faked or something like that they would go and and they would recreate shit. That was part of where I got some of my inspiration from, was from that. The original Ghost Hunters, man, they used to debunk shit, dude. They would debunk. That was like their big thing, man. Like, oh, well, we're plumbers. We know the insides and outs of how plumbing works, and we also know houses settle. You know, they know that there are logical explanations for things, and they would find those logical explanations, and they would present those things, and no one called them biased. No one called them fucking non-believers, because they also shared the evidence that they did capture that they couldn't explain, you know? And that divide happened. I don't know where that rift took place, but it sucks because everybody who's out there actually paranormal investigating, they need to be logical thinkers, and not all of them are. And if they're not, then okay, teach me the idea of being open to being taught, like how to debunk, how to like just try to think logically, come up with other reasons, try to recreate, try to do that. That's something that all legit investigators should be doing. And there's just not enough of that, man. It's all sensationalism. That's what you're going to find 10 times out of 10 most of the fucking time, dude. Rarely are you going to find anybody who, like, dude, one of the first things you said when we started this conversation was, you're not always going to find evidence. You know, you're going to sit around in a house for fucking 8 hours and nothing's going to happen. Dude, when you said that right there, because, like, this is our first time talking, like, actually talking to each other. Like, when you said that, I'm like, that right there told me a lot about you. Like, you fucking get it. Like, you're a logical thinker, man. You know that not everything is fucking paranormal. It's smoky in there, man. But yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I don't mean to rattle. It's just yeah. I do feel very strongly about it, and you know, damn, bro. I do hate that, you know, that you feel like I made that I made the wrong documentary. But I only made the documentary of the story that I found, you know, and anything that I said was fact, I backed up. You know, I presented the evidence to show the facts. Anything that was an opinion, it's stated. It's like, I am left with the conclusion that this is fake. I don't say it exactly. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then that's the thing. It's like having the perspective of somebody who knows Kent, who's been to the same place that I have, and has been in that community, or at least seen the community and kind of hung out around it and shit. I felt like it's important to hear that side from you and to understand. And I understand now a little bit deeper, because I think when you said that, you didn't realize what you were saying. You know, who cares if it's fake? You know, I don't think you realized how deep that cuts. It cuts me, you know what I mean? And I don't think you meant it the way it sounds.
No, you're fighting a fight that we've been fighting for a while, and to be honest, I've given up trying to convince people.
Sure.
There's just no point in trying to convince someone at this point.
Unfortunately, for some reason, the very last 5 minutes of the conversation was cut off. We just went on to kind of praise each other and wish each other a good day, and I let Mr. Roach have the rest of his time with his family. Again, I really wanted this perspective to be seen and heard, and I hope that all of you got something out of it, that you got a deeper look into the mind of the people who advocate for Kent. Kyler is a rare one in the sense that he was not hostile or angry with me. He actually sat and had a civil conversation, which quite a few people in this field could take some cues from that. I hope you enjoyed it, and this will be the last interview that I conduct at this point for the Ghosts of Carmel Maine subject. There will be more interviews that I have previously recorded, uploaded to the channel. And so I'll keep that train going. I appreciate you all for sitting here for 3 hours, a little more than 3 hours, and listening to us talk.